I begin with a simple question.
Yes.
Where were you born?
Canyon, Texas, about 150 yards right over there.
And that's exactly where we happen to be right now.
Yeah.
It's my first time in Canyon, Texas. Thank you for allowing me to sit down with you and talk about what is a very interesting life that you have led so far. And it seems like you're still going into really interesting parts of your life and trying out new things. So why don't we start with 150 yards away where you were born?
Right.
Tell me about that a little bit, because I'm so interested about getting to know people that didn't really start out, let's say, in the city, or didn't start out in what is known as the traditional sense now.
Right. Yeah.
What was traditional isn't anymore. So I'm really curious about the lives that are led and kind of how you got to this point.
You bet. And, to speak of like where 150 yards is, this is Canyon, Texas. It's Randall County. It's the Texas Panhandle. It's like we were talking before we started the recording. It's Kamloops area. It's the Llano Estacado. It's the Caprock. And it has a long-standing historical value to it in the state of Texas and the United States. And a lot of people don't realize that. So speaking to, what we used to be, 150 yards was a clinic. And this is where babies used to be born.
So not even a hospital, you just had a clinic.
It was a clinic. It wasn't, we didn't have hospitals. We didn't have the modern day healthcare system. My doctor, Dr. Boswell, she delivered me. She did everything for me all the way up until I was probably 16 years old. And she cared for me. She healed my broken bones. She took out my tonsils. She mended my broken arm. She did everything as a family doctor. We didn't have anything else. Nobody needed anything, and our health was different. Our food was different. Our communities were different. And this is kind of what really instigated me to do what I do today, is reflecting back on how we used to do things. Whenever I started the Beef Initiative, I said, hey, you need to start living like your grandparents did. The times are a-changing, moving forward, and you need to reflect. You need to take a pause. Where did you come from? What is the source of the seed of your understanding of the United States, of your community? What is your purpose? And if you take that pause, when I did that individually, it was through suffering is the reason I had to do that. And, it saved my life to be able to look back and say, hey, I'm very proud of this. And we've lost this as a nation, I believe, and we've lost it as a mindset and as far as a leverage on how to live your life.
I mean, I would agree with you completely on that because, especially in today's kind of what the media is feeding and what you hear a lot of is a deep hate almost for what this democracy is and what its founding fathers wanted it or intended it to be. And we heard, you hear these buzz terms, Marxism and communism and all of this stuff, and you just sit there going like, if you had any idea what you are actually spewing out into the world, you would run and hide. Because in a communist society or in a Marxist society, you don't have a voice, and nor would you ever be allowed to have a voice so loud.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how people can hate that which gives them the ability to even speak.
And it's a very good observation. It's a form of clarity that I believe this nation needs and really the world needs, And to speak to your point, and we'll kind of, get back to, knowing your roots, right? What does that mean? It means heritage. It means culture. And what's going on right now, and I just came back from Asia, and I stayed in northern Thailand for a while, and I met, the people that fled China during the Cultural Revolution. Let's talk about culture. Let's talk about culture. That's what's going on in the United States of America. People don't know how to identify with culture. The new culture is exactly what you just said. They're spewing out all of this hatred, divisiveness, and basically lack of respect, lack of integrity, lack of transparency, a lot of deceptions. And it confuses people in that if you study the Cultural Revolution of China during the, the early 60s and stuff like that, you'll see the same behavior that's going on with our children, with our, basically our regulatory agencies, our media, of course. And so I see that we've come in America to have this false sense of entitlement, that people don't really truly realize what they're up against whenever they have this type of social engineering that's going on. and we need to wake up. And what I found is what people really, really do understand is whenever food systems change and you have this mass, type of communication structure that's being leveraged against people's, mindsets.
Right.
And, there's a train wreck coming, and I don't think people truly realize that they're the ones that are perpetuating it through this type of, social media apparatus that we have, this type of centralized news that we have that have basically weaponized a lot of things. There's a lot of confusion out there, and it causes a lot of anxiety and frustration.
And as a person with boots on the ground in a literal sense,
Sure.
while you're here, in the heart of America and trying to make effective change, do you feel like the train has already gone off the rails, or do we still have the opportunity of
Sure.
changing course so we don't crash?
I really think at this time, and you look at you look at history, and you look at wars, you look at famines, you look at depressions, you look at economic downturns and everything. Sometimes, my grandfather, and this is how we'll get to the answer. My grandfather came to the Texas Panhandle in the late 1800s in a covered wagon. Think about that. Okay.
Wow.
He survived.
True pioneer.
Yeah, true pioneer. He survived 2 world wars. Okay. Gold confiscation, the Dust Bowl, the Great Depression, every bit of that. He survived every bit of it. And his life never really changed because he knew how to facilitate. And right now, what he did not understand in the 70s and 80s, at the end of his life, and it's one of the things that, one of the reasons I come from agricultural poverty, he didn't understand the dead economy in the way that it shifted within agriculture. So, and a lot of Americans don't even know that happened. And so if we look back at our society now, we're going to be able to see, this type of integration of losing perspective of where we came from, where we should be. And it really does, I think perspectives have to change right now.
And where would you see those perspectives going? Because I first read and heard about what was happening with farmers, agricultural farmers. Specifically, I remember there was a documentary I watched maybe 10 or 15 years ago about Monsanto and what they were doing and how they were screwing over folks by putting them into these deals where they were supposed to be making more money, but the only way they could make that money is by taking out these massive loans to get these industrial farming equipment that these farmers had no idea anything about, because they'd been hands-on, using hoes and shovels and labor of family to actually grow the crops on their land. And now they're coming in with these humongous machines.
Sure.
And they're making them buy the seed directly from Monsanto, and they own the patents on it. And you get into this deep debt where every harvest doesn't really help you clear out the debt. All you're doing is just paying interest on that debt, and you're just continuing to accumulate more because they come back again a couple of years later and go like, well, we got the newer stuff, and you need the newer stuff to continue to be part of our team.
Yes.
And that type of mentality has been around for a long time. I mean, franchising. If you look at the fast food industry and franchising, that model is almost like a direct copy and paste of that, where you can be a franchisee owner, but we regulate everything. And ever so often, we're going to make you spend a whole lot of money to stay up to the standard that is being, and put whatever fast food restaurant name you want to put in next to it, like that. And that's where I've gotten that information a long time ago, and I feel like you're correct that really not a lot of the youth today actually knows or cares where their food is coming from, who controls it, and how much of it is not really food anymore.
Yeah. And no, we have a complete separation of even knowing what food is in the United States of America. I've been around the world a couple of times in the last couple of years. That. Yeah. And so there's 28 countries across this globe that will not let American food across their borders.
At all.
At all. Zero. But there's franchise models that you can have, and you have them in the Middle East, you have them in Asia, and it's PepsiCo, it's Kentucky Fried Chicken, it's Taco Bell, it's Pizza Hut. And so, You know, it's our food is turned into a mass subsidization model. It's commoditized and subsidized to where it's basically so industrialized and so highly processed that it is just a model. It has nothing to do with nutrition anymore. It's basically a business model that makes high profits for those people that control the franchises and to control the supply of that food. But in the United States of America, you look now in the last 50 years, ever since we went into the debt economy, ever since we went off the gold standard in the 1970s,
Right.
you look at the health of a nation, okay? You look at the devaluation of our dollar and the health of a nation, it's the same chart. We're 88% basically in the United States right now metabolically bankrupt. So you want to talk about kids not knowing what food is, they know what tastes good. They know what they desire because that's chemical engineering at its finest, and that's what they've done to our food systems. Monsanto, technology use agreement. You can't grow, you have to grow their seeds, you have to use their herbicides, you have to use their pesticides. It's on a cycle. If you do not do that, you're out of business. You get no loans, you get no financing, you have to do it their way. We've become nothing more than serfs. To be an independent rancher producer in the United States of America, you have to exit out of that debt cycle, that financial tools that you have to be basically leveraged into, and the everything that is the seed company in the seed industry in the United States. You look at Cargill, you look at Monsanto. I call it the medical, pharmaceutical, agricultural complex now. And they're all working together. And it's really destroyed the health of our nation. It's destroying our soil in the United States. We thought we were going to feed the world. We never did. We just created an aggregated distribution model for those powers that be that control the seed. That's as simple as it gets. And this is what the most people don't understand. And that's our detachment from knowing where food comes from, what we used to do as a nation, and where we're going into the future, because there's a major industrial food shift that's unfolding right now before our eyes. Started back in 2017 when Monsanto was consolidated by Bayer. And so you had a mass consolidation of chemical ingredient companies. Bayer now owns Monsanto.
Is this the same Bayer that does aspirin?
Yes, that is the biggest
German company.
Yes.
Oh,
You
great.
know of them.
If you know a little bit about their history, then you know
let's
how
look at the
diabolically
1930s.
evil they were during Nazi
why
Germany.
are they still in business?
I don't know
Think
why they're
about
still
that,
in business,
because they
honestly.
engineered most of the destruction, chemical, and the devastation that happened during World War II. See, people don't understand their history. They don't know how we got here. And it's been a lot of deceptions, and that's the article I wrote, was The Harvest of Deception. And I said we have to get back to the source of the seed of where we came from. And this is what I'm doing with the Beef Initiative, because I come from cattle country. And we're about to lose, and our cattle industry right now is in trouble, and most people don't understand that because we don't even know what beef is anymore.
Right. And it's one of those things, if you do travel outside of this country. I was having a conversation yesterday with a friend of mine, and he and his wife had gone to Italy, and he said, I would stuff myself to I can't eat anymore. He's like, I never got that feeling of being bloated and just like lethargic after eating. He's like, there's a difference between the type of food that you ingest,
Yeah,
and the amount of it versus just eating just to eat. And that gets us that, because it's like empty calories that you're putting in. So you get so bloated, and you get we all have that feeling of like, oh man, I ate too much. But you don't get that in a lot of other countries that want to have fresh ingredients. And he literally said, he's like, we were sitting in the restaurant and they ran out of mozzarella cheese, and we saw a way to literally just jet across the street and buy it from a local cheese vendor and then bring back mozzarella cheese so they can continue serving their guests.
Of course. And that's exactly the model in which we came from right here.
And it is a very interesting thing if you think about it, because it can be a very sustainable model if you allow it to be. If you had a bunch of local producers and you had nice osterias and restaurants in a town, like let's say Canyon, you can have this closed loop cycle where I produce, you buy, someone comes and consumes at a restaurant or at a market, and we have this beautiful way of keeping things going. But you're correct when you say that all of these companies have been co-opted by much larger multi-billion-dollar conglomerates that buy them out at some point. Even Monsanto has an owner.
Yep.
Nobody thinks about it that way, but you're like, look at their principal investors and see who has the largest share in a company like a Monsanto, and then see what else they're invested in. And you'll quickly see military industrial complex comes to mind.
Yep.
The medical industrial complex comes to mind. And then you very quickly understand that it was never intended to keep us happy and healthy. It was intended to keep us in a form of modernized slavery is what I look at it
100%.
as, because I have to work, pay taxes, feed my family, but I'm putting poison into my family's body. And then what happens? I go to a doctor, and the doctor says, well, you need this pill, which is another poison,
Yep.
to continue to eat the crap that you're eating and go to the job that you hate. And you're in this never-ending cycle. And they give you a semblance of happiness by having baseball on TV or having football on TV. And it's sad.
It's very sad. I mean, you look at history. I wrote an article that said, let the poor court the rich. And what that was, it was a quote out of St. Augustine, City of God. And I didn't read the book. It's a tough book to read. It takes a while, but let the poor court the rich. And that's what, you just explained. And, people don't realize that our food system across this planet is controlled by very few corporations.
Yeah, that's the scary thing.
And that's the scary thing. And they are under plans. And I'll give you the file. I've got a file. It's about 80 pages. It was a report that was written in 2017. And it was the consolidation during, Bayer, Monsanto, and then all the major food corporations that consolidated at the same time. They got their marching orders, and they closed with this whole, it was something I'm a research analyst. It's what I found through my research. But in the very end, it's a one world food group. And what they're doing is they're coming after our food systems, because those same corporations that got us here, well, they kind of have to tell on themselves, because they've chemical engineered everything that they touch, and they use that chemical engineering to really exploit our trusts, our health, our finances, our lands, the way that we used to basically bring food to the table. It has been, and they call it, modernization and, technology and everything like that. But I'm here to tell you, they turned food into science. Food is not science. Food is biology. And this is what they've taken out of our mindsets and our basically integration and out of our families and out of our culture. And, right now in the United States of America, to generalize, over the last 50 years, the amount of chemicals that we've used, we're sitting on top of one of the biggest aquifers right now in the United States. It's called the Ogallala Aquifer. Okay. My lifetime, 50 years of my life, we've drained that aquifer. Okay. Wow. We're going through desertification here in the Texas Panhandle. So you look at that. How did we get here? Through chemical engineering, because commodity crops, they pump that aquifer dry to feed commodity grains, use commodity, basically chemicals, and have a commodity subsidized system that they said we were going to go feed the world with. We didn't feed the world. Like I said, all we did was create massive profits for these companies. And now the cows are coming home, and where our health as a nation shows it, basically our kids are basically, what the number one fastest growing metabolical disease for children in the United States is? Under 18.
Diabetes, isn't it?
Nah, it's already been there. Diabetes is number one. Fastest growing is fatty liver disease.
So, and what's so fatty liver disease? Why is it affecting children? Because that's supposed to be something that usually affects people that are very unhealthy in an older stage of life.
You betcha.
Usually it's like 50 and above.
50 and up. Usually a guy my age has been drinking his whole life.
Yeah, so like cirrhosis of the liver comes into play, and just, a mishandled life is what I would call it.
Right.
Where you've done everything in excess instead of done in moderation, where, we all like 100%. To have a beer once in a while.
Sure.
But if you're drinking a six-pack every day for 50 years, something's not going to go right.
Yeah, and people don't even know what happens when you drink. Okay, that's your liver has to, metabolize that alcohol. It's getting all that poison out, and it shoves it out to your kidneys and When you look at that same system, that same metabolical system, and people don't even know what metabolical systems are. Whenever you have children that are having fatty liver disease, it's because they're consuming chemically engineered crap. And that's usually a lot of high seed oils, fructose corn syrup, all this stuff that happened in the 70s after we went off the gold standard and we started mass marketing, and we had to build in fake commodities into our agriculture because we went off the gold standards. We had to make food profitable. And so you look what we've done since the 70s and that I speak of, and like I said, you look at our health. Well, that's how I say the cows are coming home, because whenever you have children that have fatty liver disease, that means they've never had a nutritious diet in their life, in their tract.
Yeah, and I mean, I see that a lot nowadays with parents that think they are buying a healthy snack for their children,
Yeah.
and they'll pack it in their lunch, and it'll be something as simple as a bag of potato chips that says baked on it instead of fried, and they think they're buying something that's okay for their kids.
They're
But then
trying.
when you look at the back of the label
Yeah.
and you read what's actually in there, you're like, there's almost no potato in here.
No,
And
we
there's a
don't.
lot more crap in here than there is actual something that came from the ground.
Exactly.
Whereas other parents, the ones that have figured out that, we're slowly killing the next generation without even realizing it, will do the opposite of that, where it's only fresh ingredients that are put in snacks for their lunch bag. You've got an apple, you got some carrots in there. You don't have any of this stuff that comes from a bag from a big company or
Right.
a can from a big company. My wife will even go as far as making ice cream at home for my kids, and she'll just blend up some of the same milk that we just talked about out there with fresh berries, and we got these little popsicle things that you put them in the freezer and it becomes like little ice creams.
Yep.
Well, there's nothing in there other than berries and milk.
Right.
I'm okay with that.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? That I can see where it's coming from, and I know the source of the milk because it's a local Texas farmer.
Right.
That makes a big difference for me.
It makes all the difference in the world. And that's, once again, we've with that high, basically convenient model food system, the complacency that we've come to is really, it's a form of slavery, like you said, because that type of consumption leads to a lot of ignorance and how simple it is to just basically eat right and eat healthy. A lot of people don't even know where to start. I mean, you talk about, reading the back of a potato chip bag. Okay, you're right. There's no potatoes in there. Okay, there's also a lot of people don't understand the FDA. And I'll give you an example. How do they get all these chemicals through? Well, the FDA is supposed to protect us, but they don't protect us. And
You can buy and sell the FDA. It's been proven.
Yes, they won a lawsuit in the end of 2021, October. It's under the GRAS rule, GRAS. It means generally recognized as safe.
Yes, I've heard about this. I haven't
Yes.
read about it, but I've heard about this.
And they were able to go ahead and insert 2,000 additional chemicals into our food system and not tell us what it is, because they say, hey, they're generally recognized as safe. That's all right. But see, okay, listen, 2,000 chemicals, just one chemical. Who makes money off of that one chemical? Once again, it's the medical, pharmaceutical, agricultural complex working together in that little circle there. And so you have this many chemicals inserted into a consumption as far as a food consumption model for a people. No, that's not sustainable. And neither are their high profits. That's why they keep devaluing our nutrition, and they're able to basically say it's potato chips and not. But then you have an unsuspecting public that is trying to be very intentional, and they're reading labels.
Yes.
And it's grass-fed, it's organic. Doesn't matter anymore. It's been manipulated so much. You talk about fresh fruits and vegetables. There was a report, and you can find it through a search, but they say that right now you'd have to eat 5 apples, genetically modified apples. Now it's bioengineered apples. You'd have to eat 5 to get the same nutritional value of 1 apple 10 years ago.
Right,
Think
'cause
about that.
All we've done is turn the seeds, we modified them to be sweeter,
Yep,
last longer,
exactly.
ripen quicker.
Yes.
We're trying to cut down harvest times by modifying
Yields,
these seeds, the
yeah,
yield.
just everything.
But I remember the taste of what an apple used to taste like. I remember what a banana used to taste like.
yeah.
And it gnaws at my brain every time I bite into a banana, because somewhere there's like an 8-year-old version of me going like, but this isn't what a banana tastes like. I
No.
know what it tastes like, and it's not this. And the same goes with all fruit across the board.
Sure.
It looks beautiful at the store. but when you get it home, you're not getting anything from it.
Yep.
It's just, I always tell my wife the same thing. I'm like, you're better off just eating the damn cardboard it came in.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what we're eating. We're eating cardboard for the most part. And it's just the truth. I just came back from Asia, and I was over there for 2 months.
You're in Thailand, right?
I was in Thailand this
was
time. It was phenomenal. And that's why, I do beef intelligence. I do global beef and food intelligence. So let's talk about Thailand. Let's talk about fruits.
Yes, please.
That's what we have. They have street food every day of the year. You can go out and get fresh fruits and vegetables that are still grown. I've got so much content from Asia, and there's a bigger picture going on. I have a bigger facilitation of, what's going on the macro scale as far as countries and food.
Right.
But you want to talk about eating the best fruit in the world, just go to a market in Thailand and you're going to spend less than $3 on a variety of fruit that would cost you $30 here. Those people are looked at as like, it's a third world country. They don't know what they're done. They are far more sophisticated with their food than we could ever dream about doing, because they still have access. They still have market access to their raw materials.
Yeah.
And that's the problem here in the United States. You look at where a seed starts, where it's planted, and where that travels as far as becoming whatever it is, a fruit or a vegetable. You follow that path of that seed. You see who controls the seed. You see who controls the distribution. You see who controls the processing. You see the vertical integration from the source of the seed of that creation. And it's far different than it was just 50 years ago.
I mean, I think it's our fault for even allowing someone to patent what nature provided.
100%.
We should have never allowed that.
No,
Because the Monsantos would have never
grown out of the
and
weeds.
you just said it, patent, and that's how freaking organic is. It's just a copyright.
Yeah.
And that's all it is. And now, what is the current administration's going after, or, all of this? It's part of the greenwashing that's going on across the world, because I know what's coming. There's a massive marketing campaign coming to the United States. People don't understand why it's coming. I've seen it in Australia and Asia, and it's coming this way. But that's that greenwashing. But that is them.
Tell me more about the greenwashing.
What does that mean?
Well, it's climate
for people that may
change.
not know?
Well, climate change, you could say whatever it is. It's a relative term. The
Yeah.
climate changes, damn it.
It's
Okay,
supposed to.
let's
It's
call it
never
for
been
what
static.
it is. Okay, but I don't care how scientific you are. They can't even predict how many freaking billions of years that we are. So quit trying to tell me you know what's going on.
I love that. Yeah. Wasn't it like
13.5 billion years is supposedly the end of, our existence, but they don't, that might just be the first 13.5, billion years. There could be another billion of those. So nobody can really tell. And I'm not saying that, we live right here in the Texas Panhandle.
right?
Okay, we have Air Force bases. I know I grew up looking at the sky. We're in the Llano Estacado. That's what you have. You have a lot of sky.
Yes.
Well, the sky's different than it was. Whenever I wake up and it's completely blue and I see those jets flying and there's not a chance for clouds, and all of a sudden I got a envelope of clouds over me, something has changed. But, speaking of basically the greenwashing, what they're doing is saying that we humans have destroyed the planet. No, what they're saying is that we got to cover our ass, because everything we've been doing the last 50 to 60 years is basically screwing everything up, and we can't make the same profit. So we're going to change how we facilitate, and it comes with you basically having prohibition against the individual. We're not going to give you market access to the things you used to have, because you're a bad consumer if you continue. The greenwashing is making the cow a carbon hazard across basically the whole world. Whenever
insanity.
that's established that the cow is something that is causing climate change, governments now have full basically application and facility to be able to enforce that type of bad carbon hazard against you as a consumer. So there's a bigger thing that's going on here. You hear ESG, you hear, this is a monetary reset that's going on with this hyperinflation. There's a new debt economy coming. And a lot of people don't understand that it's going to hit the food systems in ways they don't understand. And they're going to use this greenwashing to basically make you change because you're a bad, civilian. You're a bad human. And this is what's coming, and people are buying it. Whenever I was in Australia, my boy went with me, and that was last February 2023. Okay, he works out. He's 19 years old and everything. We couldn't find protein bars in Australia. We could find them a little bit, but they didn't have any more whey animal protein in those protein bars. All they had was soy protein.
Oh,
Okay,
that's nice.
this is part of the industrial food shift. Went to Asia. You asked me how it was in Thailand. Well, that's Muay Thai country. That's a lot
Yeah.
of people go there to train. There's a lot of good gyms there, and that's what I do. That's what my boy does. And, just a year ago, okay, they had whey protein. That's animal protein. That's the good stuff. That's what we need. That's true protein. Well, these gyms that I was looking at, now all they sold was soy protein. You can't get any more animal protein. And that is coming to America because you have companies like Tyson that have formed a protein pact. That's what they call it. It's a global protein pact. They're redefining what protein is. And it's dangerous territory to basically take animal protein out of our consumption model. And the greenwashing that's going on is trying to make everybody vegan, vegetarian, animal rights activists, all the way down to animal welfare. And by doing that, they're being able to devalue our food in a way that they've been doing for 50 years and still maintain the profits. It'll come through a form of greenwashing.
And the thing is like it's so easy to trick people in the big city with that kind of
It is.
mentality, because I had a 6-hour drive getting up here today. It was
Yep.
a beautiful drive, but when you sit back for a moment and take in the immensity that is just the state of Texas, I don't see a reason why we couldn't have cows naturally grazing for every single American.
Exactly.
And it's not just Texas is unique in this way. Oklahoma has it, Kentucky has it, Kansas has it, California has it,
Yeah.
upstate New York has it. There's land everywhere.
Yes.
And if it was properly taken care of, we wouldn't be in this predicament that we're in. But it's so easy when you live in Dallas or in Los Angeles or in Boston to say, we're running out of space.
Yeah.
Where are we going to fit all this and all these people? And they're like, yeah, it's kind of crowded. There's so much traffic going on. It's this dumb mentality where you have this tiny bubble that you think is the world, but it's nowhere near it.
No, it's not.
And once you actually expand your horizons, I've been lucky enough to travel 49 out of 50 states and gotten to see this country, truly gotten to see this country.
Right.
And you get to understand how big it is.
It's vast. This world is vast, and I get it. A lot of people never get to travel, and that's a prohibition. Everybody should be able to see. But right now, people really don't want to. They've been locked down mentally and stuff. But let's talk about that. You fly across this world in an airplane. We are not destroying the world, okay? Cows are not destroying the world. And it's easy to get that mentality if you're basically your audio, video, and your food consumption model is designed for big city and city life. It's easy to get trapped in that bubble of thought. And understand, it's not a judgment because I've lived in cities. I know how that is. The perpetual, claustrophobic, man, we're getting too crowded. It's a form of anxiety. It's not like that. And that's what people are going to start understanding. And, that goes back to a small town Texas, right?
Right.
This is how we used to do things, folks. This is what they took away from us. I left this town whenever I was 19 years old. I never wanted to leave this town, but it was a dead town. What killed that dead town is what Americans need to start asking themselves, and I know what it was.
So
I've lived it.
So I'm going to get to you went to Austin when you were young, but before we get there, I really want to know what did kill this town? Because it's coming back slowly now, but as a person that was actually here, saw it with, firsthand account, heard it with your own ears, tell us so we all
Agricultural
know.
poverty that was basically enforced by the multinational system. Agricultural poverty basically destroyed the lifeblood of your economic system. And they basically took everything. We used to keep everything internal first, and then it dispersed out. Now we basically take all the raw materials and gets dispersed out, goes around the world, then comes back to Canyon, Texas. And so you look at food, we have 254 counties in the state of Texas, okay?
Okay.
We used to have 254 microprocessing centers in the state of Texas. So that meant that all these cattle, you saw cattle. If we would go out today, we'd see tons of cattle. This is cattle country, okay? We had access to our own cattle, okay? But what's changed? Well, we don't have the microprocessing, but now we do because we're sitting here in the rancher storefront in the back studio, but all the beef out here in the front comes through partnership with my partner, Justin Trammell, the Trammell Panhandle Meats. We have a microprocessing center here now, okay? So what we're doing is we're keeping our cattle local first, and then we get to disperse it. This is what killed small town America, basically small town Texas, is that we took that facilitation in the food system, took it away from us.
I mean, what you're saying makes so much sense to me. Is if I was growing produce and I had the cows that were producing the milk, and at some point they were becoming steaks for us to eat.
Yep.
I didn't need to pay all the overhead expense of processing, warehousing, trucking, delivery, distribution. All of that didn't need to exist. But when you add all that, well, when I live in a small town and my wages are relevant to the town that I live in, and I'm happy and I was able to support myself, well, now I can't anymore.
No.
Because all of us know that, when you're paying $12 for 12 eggs, that's insanity.
Uh-huh.
And normal people can't afford that. So what are they doing? They're looking for cheaper and cheaper options.
Yeah.
But the cheaper the eggs become, the less nutritious they're going to be.
They're not
because
even eggs anymore.
Because they're coming from a chicken that doesn't even think it's a chicken anymore, because it's eating a feed that it was never meant to eat.
Yeah.
And it's producing more eggs than it was ever meant to produce. So you're going to lose quality when you start going after only quantity.
Yeah.
And yes, sir.
Yeah, no, right there, talking about eggs. We're going through swine flu fear tactics right now. That's going through poultry across Texas and other states right now. Okay, they just killed at least 2 million birds because
I read about
of that.
yeah.
Okay, if you're going to be relying on a system that can actually liquidate 2 million birds all at once because of some type of virus that probably is not even, they didn't even test. They're just, it's an emergency reaction through the pharmaceutical companies, which is basically in bed with the USDA, which, you get that type of industry going and that type of facilitation of culling animals, of basically being that far separated, or having a chance to have to monitor 2 million birds. That's just one producer. You think about, that's our food system. I don't want any part of that system anyways. It's not healthy for me. I don't want to participate with that. So I'm not going to validate those deceptions anymore. Okay, we got eggs right out here. All right, local guy, local eggs. It's as simple as that.
And you've got better hens that were able to roam around. And we have
health laws. We have local health laws. We follow the law better than the law enforcers. Think about that. We know the law better than the law enforcers and the inspectors because we have to. It's part of our job to work with them, not against them. When we see something we don't like, we're going to say, no, we have precedence. You're wrong. And so communities that know their health laws, communities that know their state laws, communities that know their federal laws, you can maneuver in that and you can bring back economic development. You can bring back localized food systems. And that's what we've done. That's what I was out to do whenever I basically got into food intelligence. That led into the creation of the beef initiative.
Right.
And this is what people don't realize that they have the capability of doing because they just don't know where to start. But in the big city, okay, you can't do that as easy as I can do it here in Canyon, Texas. Well, reach out to us. We will form a relationship with you. And it's about relationship management. We ship in produce. Actually, we do have produce that we ship in from Dallas right there because they're local good producers in Dallas that they basically say, hey, we're going to help y'all out because, we live in the desert high plains here. We're not going to have the same produce. But guess what? We take beef to Dallas. So it's a barter system. But it's relationship management.
Local, comparatively speaking, because you're not trucking it from Northern California all the way over here.
But see, that's just 10% of what we offer. Everything else, 90% is local. So, you do what you do as much as you can in the density, in the vertical integration of what you can do from where you stand.
Right.
And then you reach out. That's what we've always done. Instead of it, like, I'll give you an example.
Yes,
okay. let's use Georgia peaches, White Oak Pastures, Will Harris, he's in there. A lot of people know of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've heard his.
Bluffton, Georgia, and
yeah, his name came up a few times in
Right.
recent years.
and he does a really good thing. He basically controls the whole food system of Bluffton, Georgia now. I mean, good for him. But you look at a peach that is grown in Georgia. Georgia's known for their peaches. Now those peaches are, put onto the commodity market. Basically, those peaches will now go to Belize, and then from Belize they go to Thailand, they go to Bangkok, and then they come back to Georgia. They do a full triangle around this globe, and then they end up in maybe I don't know, some type of fruit cup that has all kinds of corn syrup in it. But who's making money off that peach that originated from Georgia that ends up in Georgia after it's traveled around the world? Do you think that is basically a food system that is sustainable, or that you want your children to eat just because it says heart healthy on it, or low sugar, nor no sugar added, healthy snacks for kids, it's saving the planet? See, this is what we've gone to, and it's all a bunch of deceptions. And that's why I labeled my article, my very first one, The Harvest of Deception. It's time to quit validating these deceptions, because it's killing you and it's killing your children. It's as simple as that. It's a slow burn, but our metabolic health is destroyed because of that type of facilitation of our localized raw materials. Right here, it's cattle. I'm going to feed my children my cattle, and you can't say anything about it. You multinational system, you go ahead and go do what you're going to do. I'm just not going to participate. I have a better business model, and I'm not obligated to buy your crap.
In your opinion, are we moving to a shift that more and more of us are waking up to what you've known for so many years, and some good folks in Georgia know? And is there a movement of just, I guess, civilians
Yes.
who want to be part of this coalition and who want to really somehow change this poison system that we are in?
Well, I wrote The Harvest of Deception. I've been doing this. I come from basically I was a research analyst in telecommunications as the ending of my career. I got out of big tech. I know what I'm talking about whenever I say what I'm saying. And so I said at the beginning of this recording, I got here through suffering.
Yes.
I had basically a bad accident, and I've broken over 20 bones in my body. I'm a rough and tumble, punchy ass West Texas cowboy. So I've broken bones. I got a broken neck. I got 14 pieces of metal in me.
Wow.
I've beat up this body. I've beat up this old noggin a couple of times too. I've got fingers that have been cut off, stuff like that. I know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about suffering, and I know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about food, because that's all I've ever eaten was basically what was local. But going back to the point, as far as, knowing about health and, sorry, I went off on a tangent there. Go back to the question real quick, because.
So the question was, do you feel like that more people on the outside are trying to join in with your movement?
That's what I was trying to paint the path towards, was suffering. I got beat up pretty bad. I broke some ribs.
I want to ask about that too at some point, because I would love to know. But before we segue to that, I just want to know.
Yeah, I think people are waking up. At the time when I started doing the research and everything, because I did a deep dive, and then I hashtagged out food intelligence. That's where we're going with all of this. This is a new layer of food intelligence. When I started this, not that many people, but I got into food intelligence through suffering. I had to look at myself because I almost died because I got injured so bad. So I had to start over. And I said, well, I'm going to look at everything that I'm doing, because this is a reset for myself. So I've seen a lot of people come into the Beef Initiative through suffering, but now I see a lot of people waking up saying something's up with our food. We went through COVID, and a lot of people woke up. There was a lot of an awakening, a lot of awareness. This ain't right. And now I think that people are really going, holy crap, they're coming after our food too. And this is a way I want to live. I feel kind of leveraged out of my own spirit, leveraged out of my own, happiness. What is my lifestyle management going to be? So I think a lot of people are changing their lifestyles, and they are waking up.
Which is good to hear, because if we don't, and we continue down this destructive path, I mean,
There's
You're in the medical, pharmaceutical, agricultural complex. Okay, you're going to get sick. You're going to get your prescriptions, and you're going to keep on, and you're going to keep on going in that will, and it's a slow death. I mean, the health of the United States is, our life expectancy went down now. Why is that if we're so advanced? Well, it's because we don't have health anymore. Our medical system is compromised. And I know this because we have a lot of ranchers that are doctors. We have a lot of doctors that have come into the Beef Initiative that basically provide what they're seeing in, their offices. We are not saying anything that we're saying. We're coming with results. And that's what people are starting to wake up to.
I mean, it's crazy because I had a physical a couple of months ago, and the doctor called me, went over everything, you're great, blah, 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 all this, but said slightly elevated cholesterol level. Slightly elevated. And I was like, all right, that's fine. And I was like, how slight is slight? She's like, well, normal range is, let's say, 10, you're at 12. Not a big deal at all. But nowhere in that conversation did the doctor say, an easy way to mitigate this is cut down on your sugar intake if you have a lot of that. If you drink too much, drink a little less. Take a walk once in a while, something like that. None of that was given to me. What was said was, if it continues, we'll put you on a low dose, cholesterol medication or hypertension medication or whatever. And I'm like, is this really the go-to? Automatically, I need to put a chemical in my body instead of looking at what could easily be mitigated. If I'm at the very, very low levels, I'm not at, full fatty liver disease or congenital heart failure or something like that. It's just a little bit of elevation in cholesterol. It's normal, you know what I mean? And it's frightening to me because
of course it is.
I remember a time where a doctor would be at liberty to tell you, hey, maybe you shouldn't smoke as much as you do, or how about taking a walk?
Yeah.
Or, are you exercising at all? Yeah, they don't do that anymore.
No, they're technicians anymore. And I'll go after any doctor right now because my whole family, I'm kind of unique because I come from the soil. I come from my grandfather. Our place is not that far from, what he had to get out of because of the dead economy. Our DNA is kind of set here. All of us came from the same soil, the same microbes, everything. But a lot of my cousins, a lot of my family are suffering the same metabolic health that I talk about. The destruction of it, from MS to diabetes to obesity to heart disease to alcoholism to fatty liver disease. It's all in my family. I'm not, but see, I followed a different path than they did. And that's something I can really talk to. And there's doctors out there right now that are nothing but technicians, and all they're doing is writing pharmaceutical, basically, solutions. You talk about cholesterol, that's the biggest joke, the cholesterol lie, and people are waking up to that as well. They only know when the cholesterol scare happened, and that was whenever Eisenhower basically had a heart attack in the late 50s, and the nation went, what's going on? Heart disease was a new thing. They didn't talk about that Eisenhower smoked 4 packs of cigarettes a day.
And he had the most stressful job in the world.
I mean, a freaking World War, then president for 2 terms. I mean, rebuilding country in a world too. So a lot of people don't know the history of where we came after the World War II, who was leading that charge as far as pharmaceutical industries. Bear, think about that. So you look at all the types of statins that we've inserted, all the types of diseases that we now have, from ADHD, behavioral issues, anxieties, thyroid issues, metabolic health. I have a very good friend. He's a heart surgeon, Philip Ovadia. You can look him up. He says one of the fastest growing people on his operating tables are men in their 30s. That's a new phenomenon. And how are we getting there? Because we don't have a general understanding of what health is, and what they're classifying as things that are killing us are not killing us. Cholesterol, bullshit. They're saying that, you eat too much red meat. No, a nation needs to eat 10 times more red meat than it is right now and divorce the supermarket. Then let's look at the health of a nation, because you got people out there right now like me that can stand up to anybody and say, check me, check my blood work. I'll tell you what, I've got, how many people coming to the Beef Initiative telling me their health stories, their testimonials of how they did lower the cholesterol by quit eating highly processed foods from the supermarket, and they became carnivores, and their cholesterol, their healthy cholesterols skyrocketed. Their unhealthy cholesterol went down, all because of a carnivore diet. We've got all the scientific data. They've not. We've got all the results, but they won't hear it. Nobody does hear it because it's not from the medical community.
And you don't have to actually travel far or do a lot of research on that. I can give you one name, Google his test results, and it's the proof is in the pudding. Dana White.
There you go.
The man
He
went
just
from
did it.
I'm gonna
Yes.
die.
From what his doctors were telling
Yep.
him to, I don't have any intention of dying anytime soon. I don't have to take my cholesterol medication, my thyroid medication,
Yep.
my this, my that. And it took about 6 months. And yes, it wasn't just the change in the food that he was ingesting, but that was a big part
It
of
was
it.
lifestyle management. It's behavioral issues.
And you're talking about Dana White, a guy that has unlimited amounts of resources to have the best physicians.
Yep.
He's not on, the government's Medicare or Medicaid system. He's a private pay guy that can afford the best of the best. And he found someone that was out of that system, someone on the fringe, you can kind of think of it as, who said, no, you know what? You might be looking at this the wrong way.
Yeah.
Why don't we take a look at these other factors and how we can actually help you? And you look at Dana White now from a year ago, and you're like, that guy looked unhealthy. That guy looks like he can, take a
He
boulder
got a
up or-
six-pack now. I
Yeah, like
think,
that guy
doesn't
can
he?
lift a boulder if he needed to.
Well, let's go on to somebody else, Dr. Sean Baker. I know
Yes.
Dr. Sean Baker. He spoke at a couple of our conventions. He's spoken in Nashville. I'll be in Nashville in July. We've got all the people out there in the world. He's got thousands of people that have changed their lives through carnivore diet. All the results are there. Like I say, I established a beef initiative on one premise alone that matters the most. You can only talk about results, not about hopium, not about a trend.
Right.
What are the results? Show me the results, and then we'll have a discussion here. But I've gone out there and I've engineered a lifestyle based on behavioral changes, based on getting market access to localized animal proteins and clean produce that doesn't basically have to rely on that multinational system. Your whole lifestyle becomes better. You meet new people that basically improve your lives. Your behaviors change. Your kids get happier. We've got so many testimonies. I mean, this is it. This is what people are searching for in the United States right now too. Sometimes they don't even know that that's what they're searching for.
And it's hilarious to me is that this conversation would be considered far-right extremist.
Of course.
And it drives me up a wall. I'm a first-generation immigrant in this country. I cannot be labeled a far-right extremist.
It's amazing,
if I
isn't
tried.
it? Well, this is the social engineering that comes with cultural revolutions, and this is what people don't understand what's going on. How in the hell can you be first-generation migrant that loves this country, that has reflection of what true communism or extremism is, and now you're the one that's labeled? See, they're taking logic out of our society with that type of social engineering. And you're right, I'm on the fringe,
Doesn't
and
make sense though. This should
it's-
be
it's a-
the norm and the popular voice
Well,
versus
it
the
was at
fringe
one
voice.
time. It was, during the Great Depression. I know a lot about it because this place got hit hard as far as the Dust Bowl. The Dust
Right.
Bowl preceded the Great Depression. We were right along with it, really. But you think about that, and you look back at history and where we've come through, and being able to reflect on what happens during a depression or during the time, you've got so many stories that I would love to hear about, where you come from.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, I left there when I was a child, but I had to leave because, where I was going through its own hell
Right.
because the Soviet Union had collapsed
Mm-hmm.
and Armenia, for the first time in a very long time, had to figure out governance and start
Yeah.
a system and a foundation. And, I distinctly remember not having power in
Yeah.
our house. And we lived in the middle of the city, the
Mhm.
capital city, Yerevan, and we had no power. And it wasn't just our house, it was everybody because they needed to turn off the power because their grid just couldn't handle
Sure.
it. They didn't have the resources in the beginning to.
Yeah.
And, now almost 40 years later, it's still not great. It's working on getting better,
Mm-hmm.
but we have lost sight of what it truly means to be an extremist.
Mm-hmm.
Those people exist in this world and they do exist in this country, but they're a very, very minor
It's
nuisance.
basically, it's
They're
a
not the
production.
majority.
It's a production now. It's a centralized media production now. You know, and talking, I was going to say about the Great Depression,
Yes, sir.
you know, the USDA encouraged you to go out and get your hens, get your chickens, raise your own food, you know, raise your own garden, you know, be part of your food system. And it was encouraged. They got you started to basically, hey, be self-reliant. Now, if you're self-reliant in the United States of America, you are French. And this is what's amazing because, you know, I don't talk politics, I don't talk religion, and I don't talk about money, you know, as far as having money or not having money. That's not what any of this is about. And this has nothing to do with political maneuvering. This has nothing to do with any types of religions. This is about feeding my child. And if you're going to make that illegal, then we've got problems.
Oh yeah, and a lot of that I think stems from we are no longer, and I don't know if we ever were, in a healthcare mind. We
Yeah.
are in a disease care mind.
Of course we are.
And-
We're reactive. We're not proactive about health. We're reactive to disease.
Yes.
And we profiteer off that disease and we keep you going in that disease. Let's look at insulin. You brought up diabetes. Okay, let's talk about this. Okay, insulin subsidized by the United States government. Okay, because half this country is on insulin right now. 1 out of 2 Americans are now diabetic, and that is growing.
That's
Okay,
insane.
it is insane. How much does insulin cost every month for an individual? What do you think?
I could I don't have to really think about it. I can probably call my business partner and ask him because we're in the healthcare industry
Right.
outside of this.
Yes.
And he could probably tell me exactly what a vial of Ozempic would cost, or Lantus, or
I think the
Novolog,
generalized
or any of the millions of
Sure.
types of
I think the generalized price, and he can confirm, and maybe it's something good that we can come back to because it'd be good. Because a couple of years ago, I looked at it, was $900 a month for an individual.
I don't think you're far off from
Right.
that number, to be honest with you. I think it might be, pardon me, the same or if not higher now, but the consumer doesn't end up paying $900. You're very
That's what I'm
correct.
saying.
Most of
It's
us,
subsidized.
Medicaid, Medicare will pick up the bill for
Right.
almost all of it in most instances. And this is a lifetime prescription. This is what people don't seem to want to understand either, is like, if I break my leg and I need to take an antibiotic just to make sure that, you know, I'm not getting a
Sure.
bacterial infection because of a
Exactly.
broken something, that's temporary. If I need to take pain management medication because of the same broken leg, that's again meant to be a temporary prescription. But CHF medication, diabetes medication, a thyroid medication, and a whole host of them, which is pretty much the bulk of the money that the pharmaceutical industry makes, is how long can we keep you on this?
Of course.
On the never-ending teat of the government, and how long can we just keep taking money on behalf of you from the government? Because that's
Yep.
all it is you are genuinely a holding company for that 2 seconds while they
You're the
give you a
product.
prescription and then Medicare does the transfer of payment.
You're the product.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of Americans don't understand because they're suffering. And they don't understand why they're suffering. Even when they try, they're suffering. And then they end up becoming a diabetic. Then they end up becoming dependent on insulin for the rest of their lives.
And that's the biggest BS they tell diabetics. Don't drink regular soda, drink diet soda.
Yes.
Have you lost your mind
Yes,
completely?
they have.
Why are you not telling these people, hey, you're going to be on diabetes medication, but if you follow this stringent rule of
There's no
exercise,
money in it.
diet,
There's no
after
money.
5 years maybe, when you get your weight controlled and you're eating healthier, you might still need that diabetes medication, but you will need it maybe once a week,
Exactly.
maybe twice a week.
Not every 24 hours.
Sometimes you can go into a full remission state of diabetes, because a lot of people get diagnosed with pre-diabetes.
Yeah.
Whereas like, hey, you're on the cusp of this. And then they're not told what to do to mitigate it. They're put on a low-dose metformin, which doesn't do anything other than just over time get you ready for actual taking insulin or taking some other pill, because now you're a full-on diabetic. That is a huge issue for me. Because if you told me I'm pre-diabetic, well, the first thing I'm going to do is change my diet, start exercising, maybe look at other things that I can get rid of in my life that are causing me to be on the cusp of a lifetime disease.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about an organ failing to do its job, and we are so nonchalant about this. It drives me up a wall.
Well, it's how you destroy, you know, the health of a nation is through a bad money system, and basically who's profiteering off of that insulin? Think about it. You know, it's the pharmaceutical complex.
Yeah.
I mean, we just went through COVID, and, you know, I've barely even taken any antibiotics my whole life. I've got inoculated as we're supposed to as young people
Yes.
whenever I grew up. But you ain't going to get a lot of injections in this guy. And I'm proud to say I will never take a vaccination. And I'm proud of that because that was one of the biggest farces I've ever seen. But you look who's profiting off of your consumption, who's profiting off of your disease, who's profiting off of you not being happy, but who's stewarding that type of lack of education, that ignorance, and that type of consumption model. That's what I tell people. I said, you got to check your consumption model, not just your food, but your audio, your video, and your food. They're correlated.
Oh, yeah.
Because we have a controlled system now. You know, I come from research and analysis in big tech. I got out of big tech because I saw where we were going within technology and within social media, with dopamine, with how we're engineering basically behavior through our children, the swipe effect now, the lack of attention spans that we've now obtained as a nation. We're only on the application layer of the internet. We're not on the internet anymore. That application of the internet is controlled by very few technology companies.
Right.
Big techs, you know, you hear FANG, right? You have Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Netflix, Google, Alphabet, you know, those companies, man, that's engineering behavior that really is not healthy. And people need to wake up to that. We need to understand that we live in an artificial world right now, and we're already living in the metaverse.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We live in boxes. We live in artificial boxes. We have artificial lighting. Okay. We have artificial relationships through a digital means. We live in the digital world. We have the Division of Interpersonal Communication. I wrote a big piece of it for the telecommunications industry back in 2004 saying this is where we're going. And this is exactly where we're going. So people need to take that pause. Like I said, step back.
I don't think anybody wants to because
They
it's
don't
so
want to
much
because
easier.
they're addicted.
Yeah, it's so much easier to be ignorant than it is to
Open your eyes
But
because
that
when you
will
do-
lead. Well, what I tell people, I said, you better start engineering your own suffering before that suffering gets engineered upon you in a way that you don't have any way out. Because with what's going on with hyperinflation, with what's going on with our monetary systems, what's going on with this new debt cycle, what's going on with this global industrial food shift, what's going on with wars right now, this is a monetary reset. This is going to have some suffering that happens. You look at food prices right now in the supermarket. I don't spend a lot of money on food. I buy all my own food from the rancher's storefront. I have divorced the supermarket. I don't spend that much money on food. And everybody has this perception is like, well, it's too expensive to buy local. Not anymore. Tell me about it now, because why does the United States government not put food into the inflation model?
I didn't know they
CPI.
don't do that.
No, the CPI model does not include food. The most inflationary thing that they basically leverage against us as far as consumers in the United States of America is something they won't include in the inflationary model and predictions.
So is that why they keep telling us the economy is better than it's ever been?
Yes, of course. But see, right there, the general public doesn't have access, or they have access, but they don't have the attention span to say, what's going on here? You know, just like being trapped in the big city and thinking the whole world is like that.
Right.
Same thing with basically money. Hey, folks, you know, we printed $33 trillion pretty recent. We're printing $1 trillion right now a month. That's not sustainable. So what you're going to see, going back to the Great Reset or the Great Depression, that was a monetary reset. And we got out of that monetary reset through war. And then after war, we had a new global freaking monetary system. That was the United States dollar. That was the petrodollar. We're not on the petrodollar anymore, folks. We're
No,
on to the printer.
And you said something just now that I think kind of summed it up. I know it wasn't what you meant to say. You're saying the Great Depression, but you said the Great Reset. And I
Right.
think if my conspiracy hat was on, I would be in a position to say that it almost feels like this is a cultivated effort to get the entire world on the brink of destruction,
Of course it is.
to then say, all right, we need to wipe it all out clean.
Mhm.
Nobody owes anybody anything because you can't pay back $200 or $300 trillion
Yeah.
of China owes us, we owe them, they owe them, and they owe
Except
them. And it's like
parts.
everybody owes everybody money.
Mhm.
Nobody has any idea where that money is supposed to go, where it's gone, or where it's going to come from.
Yep.
And I feel like, honestly, we're Carl Schwab. What's the guy's name? Somebody
Charles, Carlos,
No,
whatever.
Yeah,
something
the
Schwab.
the weird dude from
Yeah.
the WHO.
Yeah, Klaus.
Klaus, yes,
Yes.
yeah, Klaus, and he keeps advocating for this great reset, and I'm being honest, like my conspiracy theory hat goes off saying,
Oh, it's
This
not
is
a
what's happening, man.
This
This
is
is
not a
what's happening to us.
conspiracy. Look what they're doing to food systems. They're calling, they're calling livestock all across the world, the greenwashing stuff.
yeah,
They're calling livestock. They're basically, you look at the Netherlands, over the 3,000 farms are gone. That's asset reallocation. There's a lot of things that Americans don't realize that's unfolding, and it's part of that global industrial food shift. It's part of the monetary reset. There's going to be a new form of wealth that is
Oh, yeah.
created, and there's going to be a new layer of poverty created. You can't have more wealth unless there's more poverty.
and the unfortunate thing is, I believe that the wealth will be larger, but so will be the poverty.
Yes,
So will be those. 'Cause
that's how this happens.
the middle class is completely being eradicated.
It's already eradicated. People just don't understand it yet. I'm serious. It is.
I guess I'm being a little bit more hopeful, hoping
You-
that
You are right now, because people don't understand that a lot of people are going to be not as well off as they thought they were going to be. I don't think people are well off right now.
I
They're
think
not. They're suffering, but they don't know how to deal with that type of suffering, financial suffering, this debt that's coming. And what this debt is going to be, it's going to be a new form of digital currency debt. It's going to be a form of track and trace. It's going to be a form of, hey, we know what you're consuming, because I already know what we consume.
Oh yeah,
They've got the data down. They know exactly what you and I are doing right now, and that cannot be basically argued anymore. They know what you do. They know you better than you know yourselves. Do they pay attention to you? Not unless you basically become part of their digital enforcement that there's coming, and it's going to come through, new forms of verification. I see something happening on the internet where you won't even be able to get on the internet unless you verify yourself.
Interesting.
100%. You're already doing it now. You just don't know it. But they're going to make it to where it's really something. There's something they're doing. Like, Schwab, they got something really called Cyber Polygon. It's kind of the 9/11 of the internet. And it's, what they do is they frame this stuff as like, we've got ransomware, we've got viruses, we've got all this stuff going on the internet, and it's terrorism, and it's, money laundering. There's still all kinds of things as far as not telling the truth, but they can crash the internet pretty easily in certain forms on that application layer of the internet. They
Right.
do that, you're going to have to pay to play it again and in there again. And you're going to have to give up a lot of your sovereignty to do that. And you'll have to leverage yourself into a new debt economy that people don't understand. They don't see it coming. And what we're suffering through right now, this is just the beginning. It's going to get worse. You look at the cattle industry right now. Today, we're at 173 a pound on the commercial cattle. So you check it. Check it on Sunday and see what it is. Check it. Let's check it today before you leave.
Sure.
Yeah, but there's a lot of there's things that are going to collapse, and it's going back to what you were saying. It's like take it to the ground. That's why I say it's an global industrial shift. Whenever you have an industrial shift, let's go back to the printing press.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all of a sudden, man, you had mass communication on a scale that had never been done before. Who was put out of business, who, basically didn't have any jobs anymore, and who basically went off and just did amazing things. Well, we're going to have that type of industrial shift now. We had it within food at one point in time. A lot of people don't understand that. Procter & Gamble, okay?
PG&E.
Yeah, and they used to be the biggest candle maker in the world. In the late 1800s, 1900s, they quit selling candles. They weren't selling as much. What'd they make those candles out of? They made them out of cottonseed. Okay.
I thought there was like an animal byproduct.
No.
that
In the very beginning, it would have been, but no, they went into industrialization.
So cottonseed.
So electricity came along. So
Yeah.
no more candles. What'd they do with that cottonseed? Crisco.
Is that where we're getting all that crap from?
Yeah. So we
So
get it.
seed oils are cottonseed oils
Well,
in
they,
some cases,
they were in the
or
beginning, and now what we have though in 1956, the USD or the FDA of the United States of America outlawed rapeseed. What is rapeseed?
I don't know what is rapeseed.
Canola oil.
Okay, that's what canola is.
Yeah, it's a weed,
Uh-huh.
and so they outlawed it because it was poisonous. Uric acid, just kill you.
Yeah.
Now they genetically modified the rapeseed, and now basically canola oil is in everything that we consume. Once again, a new fake commodity that they have basically exploited to high global profits. Okay, but that industrial shift into rapeseed from tallow, that's what McDonald's used to fry their fries with. Well, with tallow, tallow is animal fat.
Which is what I use in
beef
my
fat.
cooking.
There
when
you go.
When I'm making steaks for my kids, I use
Right.
100%
There
beef
you
tallow.
go.
And if you look at beef tallow, it's no color to it when it's melted. Like,
Right,
and it's
it's
melted.
beautiful.
It just looks clear like water,
Yep.
and it has an extremely high burn point.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not decomposing the molecules into something that is poisonous, like you can do with almost all the other oils that
Right.
you use.
You can put canola oil in your car and your car will run, okay?
Biodiesel.
Yes,
Very
it
similar
is.
to it.
It's biodiesel. That's why it was really industrialized into its form in the beginning, but then they lobbied, they changed the seed, everything that I talked about, that deception started happening. And now, I remember eating fries from McDonald's with tallow. Dang, that was the best. Why do you think that everybody loved McDonald's fries?
I used to. It was the best fries in the world, and
course.
now it's just horrible.
Now it is, but still a lot of people are addicted to it, though, right?
Yes.
Why are they addicted to it? To the chemical engineering? Because you look at a company called DSM, and they're out of the Netherlands. They're a food science company that basically engineers taste,
Oh, interesting. Okay.
and they have engineered thousands of new tastes in the last couple of years. And so they're going to get very good about basically working with your brain. And right when you taste something, it's going to have a reaction. And they're already being able to, once again, science. So they're turning science into a form of basically addiction through our consumption. How many tastes do you get when you go to a convenience store? Now it's just everything that's in those coolers. All these different types of sugars, all these different types of taste. This is a new phenomenon that people don't know, but they are addicted to it. Because if they weren't selling mass quantities of all that new design, that food design, they wouldn't sell it. But they know that they got us addicted. They got our children addicted. Why do they flood, impoverished small towns with the worst type of Mountain Dew? And, and sugar leads to addiction. Leads to, opioid addiction, alcoholism, drug addiction. That's proven. We know that. My father was a counselor for 30 years. He was a licensed chemically dependent counselor. And so he knows a lot about death. He knows a lot about addictions. Right now in the United States of America, food is an addiction.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Oh,
a
yeah.
drug.
Yeah. And it's one of those things that when you look at what we consume on a regular basis and how much of it we consume.
Mhm.
So you've traveled the world a couple of times.
Yep.
I've had the opportunity to travel to certain places, around the world. And even our neighbors down south, I went to Mexico City,
Mm-hmm.
and you're at a restaurant. The portions are nowhere near the size of what you get here. There's much less. And you still feel full.
Mm-hmm.
And you're fine after you had your meal, and you're in Mexico City. And if you would tell the average American they have better food in Mexico, people would lose their mind
They would.
because they can't fathom that Mexico could be somehow surpassing us in anything, because we're supposed to be the best at everything and be the
Right.
greatest. But we got to get away from that mentality, because we used to be,
Yeah.
but we haven't been the greatest at anything in a long while.
No, the innovation is gone. The innovation is basically being perpetuated now. Any type of innovation that you see, like you came here for the first time, well, some of the biggest innovation in Canyon, Texas right now is we got 4 new convenience stores. Think about that.
Yeah.
That's a sad thing. That's a sad thing for people saying that's a type of innovation. I don't see a lot of good innovation in the United States because I've been around the world. We're losing. I've been to Asia. You should see the cities over there. You should see the roads in China. You should see what they've done to their infrastructure. You drive through the United States of America, because I've driven 160,000 miles across this nation
Wow.
just in the last 2 years.
Wow.
I've been driving this country ever since I was 15.
I haven't done that much driving yet, but
Yeah, well, I've seen this country, and you know what this country has in common? Everywhere you go, every small town in the United States of America, you know what you have?
people suffering probably.
You got suffering, you got agricultural poverty, you got metabolical disease, you got a Dollar General, a convenience store, and a Walmart.
And
That is the basically consensus of the United States of America food system now. That's what's feeding our children. That's what's feeding our families. Small town America used to be the healthiest in this nation. Now it's just as bad as the inner city. We're living in a food desert, and I've seen it firsthand, and I've got over 2 terabytes of content that we haven't even released yet as far as the beef initiative.
Nothing against Sam Walton and what he created
No,
with
not
his
at
company,
all.
but I don't
He should have
believe
stopped.
Walmart
though,
should
man.
exist.
Well, it shouldn't exist. No, it should not. Not on the scale that it is. After a while, you know, it becomes such the deception that whenever you have to answer to global stockholders, then you've lost control.
Oh yeah, and
That's it.
and when you look at 3 or 4 investment firms blanket owning almost everything in this country at this point,
Oh yeah.
it-
You
it's
got BlackRock and Vanguard. They own
State
90%.
Street.
Yeah.
and the three of them,
the three
the
of
big
them brought
three.
90% of the wealth in the United States.
And what's funny is most people don't even know this is I actually went down this rabbit hole a few months ago, and BlackRock's biggest investor is State Street. State Street's largest investor is BlackRock. BlackRock's is Vanguard. So the 3 of them are intertwined with one another too.
Oh yeah.
They are their largest investors of themselves. Then they are the largest investors in the S&P 500, the Googles and the Netflix of the world, and AT&Ts and Verizons, to the pharmaceutical. And you're just like, why are you allowed to make these types of buys and then have so much unilateral control over everything? Because they have seats on these boards,
Yep.
and since they're the majority stockholder, they get to make a lot of decisions because they can just sell your stock and short you, and you die the next day.
Yeah.
If BlackRock
100%.
sold its holding in Google, Google's done.
Yeah.
As much as it wants to recover from it one day, maybe, but
No.
when you have the largest principal investor saying no, you're done.
You are done, and it's been a fascinating ride, and people don't understand the I refuse to even dabble in the stock market. Whenever I was coming up through technology, I was with a couple of startups, right?
Right.
And I was with one company, and we were basically, stock trading. What we were doing, it was the first time ever. It was in 1999, started 98. What we did is we allowed you to trade from your computer, straight from your computer to the ECNs in Wall Street.
Okay.
We bit space and time. Never been done before. Had to go through a lot of regulations, a lot of regulatory crap and stuff like that. But you had E-Trade back then, and all you were doing was like, ooh, I'm buying stocks online. You were using a browser. You were sending off a buy or a sell. That email went to a broker, and he had to take his time. There was a delay going on, so it wasn't
Yes.
very good trading. But they were acting like it was, and they would hedge it, in every direction. Well, we eliminated that shit, and we said no. It was a new form of innovation, and I found out a lot about stock and who controls the stock market and everything. Being part of that startup company, it was software engineering, it was technology, it was innovation. Charles Schwab came and bought us for $500 million in less than 3 years.
Okay.
That's amazing, because Charles Schwab became Charles Schwab after that.
And
to
this
that
is the
innovation.
90s, by the way.
That was in the
$500
90s.
million acquisition
1999,
is
that's
a
big.
unicorn in and of itself.
That's huge.
Yeah, today you're talking about multi-billion-dollar
Yeah.
acquisitions, so people think, well, who cares about
cares?
that?
In the late 90s,
That's big time.
$500 million would be probably the equivalent of a $20 or $30 billion
NASDAQ was
acquisition.
about 1,200 back then.
Yeah.
So,
Now, was
you
it
look
15,000, 20,000,
Yeah,
some number like that?
exactly. So you do that type of 1,200 to
10x
50
difference, yeah.
10x difference. That's big time money. That's big time innovation. But what people don't understand, man, the stock market is always going to be leveraged against you.
Right.
The civilian consumer, retail, basically stock trader.
Well,
And you don't have access to those type of financial tools to be successful. And they use this world-class marketing this application layer of the internet now that everybody's always living in this dream that's been fabricated. The money system's been fabricated. The access to BlackRock and to get into that good old boys club of Vanguard, BlackRock, and
State Street.
State Street. And it's, you know, it's a lot of us don't understand it. And what you need to do is kind of exit out of that system. Well, those people control your food systems too. They
Right.
control your money system. They control your food system. They're in it to win it. Like I say, they have to make massive profits.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Why I was alluding to all that was that they're not looking at this as they're hurting consumers
Not
or
at
the
all.
average American or this or that.
Not
They're
at all.
looking at it in a very, very different way. They're looking at, I have a balance sheet
Yep.
and I have a quarterly report to my shareholders, and if I don't show that we are on an uptrend, I got a problem.
Liquidate. You know?
Because so they have to continually try to find ways to squeeze out more money
Yes.
to show their shareholders, quarterly or yearly that, hey, here's our projections, we exceeded them. There's confidence in us. Put more money into it.
Yep.
Keep pumping the system, and that is okay if you're in certain industries. I would say certain industries that are benign and are not going to be causing the systematic eradication of society as we know it potentially. That's fine. Have fun with it. Like if you want to keep turning profits on Stanley Cups, have at it.
Sure.
I couldn't care less because at the end of the day, it's probably not going to kill anybody.
Right.
But if you need to keep making more profits in farming or in chicken or in fishing, even fishing has become industrialized and farmed too.
Oh, it's
It's a bad industry right now too.
If you've had good salmon before, actual wild caught Alaskan, salmon,
We got some right up there.
and you look at the farmed one, like at a, Central Market, a Tom Thumb, a Kroger, whatever big chain store you want to walk into,
No.
you don't have to buy it there. But if you walked into it and they actually have a selection of the wild caught Alaskan versus the regular stuff,
Sure.
the regular stuff is pale. It has no color. It has
Right.
it doesn't look good even sitting on that, cooler.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that is being translated to everything that we consume. Is you've got the cheaper one that just doesn't look right, but it's cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the real one sitting right next to it, but it's far more expensive.
Yeah.
And then you've got something that they've thrown in the middle, which annoys me more than anything else, is the pretend real stuff,
Mm-hmm.
where they'll put labels on there that say organic or, free range and whatever the buzzword of the month is.
Yeah.
And then you read about it and you're like, oh, only 3% is organic?
Of course.
That's what it takes for it to be labeled as an organic product?
right.
And it's terrifying.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
It is.
or you have a grass-fed cow, but if you didn't know that it wasn't grass-finished, that means you're still getting something that ate a bunch of grain at the end of its
I
life.
always tell everybody that's a funny one to me. It's like I never met a cow that didn't love grass.
Right.
So people don't even know, oh, it's grass fed. Well, that's what cows do. They eat grass.
That's what they're
They're
supposed to
land
do.
tools. That's why they're so good for our environment. They keep our soil healthy. They fertilize it. They keep it grazed, and they keep it basically where our soil has a root system. Our forage grows deeper and deeper, and it's more sustainable. We live right here in the grasslands of America. This is the end of the grasslands, the Great Plains.
right.
Okay, for thousands of years, millions of bison right here where we are right now. We have West Texas A&M University right here. Their mascot is the buffalo,
Yes,
the
yes, it is.
bison. Okay, so we used to have some of the best grasslands in the world here. Can you imagine right now, whenever you leave here, imagine there's no buildings, okay? Just imagine what you see. It's just grass. Well, they came in and said, oh, this is useless. We've got to plant some commodity. And they first started off with wheat. That's where, that the wheat, basically farming here in the Texas Panhandle all the way to Kansas, Oklahoma, all the way down to here.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we did that's what got us in the Great Depression. Wheat was it was the commodity crop. And then boom, it crashed. And well, agriculture wasn't really, that viable then because we had overloaded in the commodity system that was wheat at the time. The world didn't need that much wheat. We didn't have anything to replace it to balance out that commoditization. And so what we done, we took some of the best grasslands, should always just have cattle on it. This is Camacharia. This was the food supply for the Comanches for thousands of years. The Comanche War right here in the Texas Panhandle and the rest of Texas and further up into Oklahoma and Kansas, that was the longest standing war in United States history. It's 45 years old.
Wow, I
Okay.
didn't know that.
Nope, nobody does. But thing about it, we couldn't defeat the Comanches. Okay, how did we eradicate the Comanches? We destroyed their food systems. And so, as far as there's a fascinating book out there called "Harvest of the Summer Moon," Empire of the Summer Moon.
I've
I'm
heard of
sorry,
the book,
sorry.
yes.
And it's Quanah Parker, it's the Comanches, it's the Texas Rangers, it's this area really, a lot of it, because Palo Duro Canyon, the adobe walls, everything. There's so much fascinating history that came from food systems, what we were once as a nation as far as our soil, how we got here. Why was it so just beautiful and magical? What have we taken away? What has changed? And that's what you need to look at. And it's easy for me to do because I grew up right here. I'm right here. We're 30 miles from Hereford, Texas. That is the belly of the beast of the multinational system. That's 85% of all animal protein in the United States now is basically processed by 4 multinational systems. Right over there in Hereford, Texas, that's where a lot of that happens.
I didn't know that.
And a lot of people don't know it. A lot of this.
So
85% of cattle in the state of Texas end up here in the Texas Panhandle.
So I know one of the large ones is Tyson Foods.
Mhm.
And then there's-
JBS.
Okay, and
And
so
they're out of Brazil, and they
so-
should be basically in prison. They've been in prison once. The founders of JBS, they should have the Department of Justice all over their ass. During COVID, they manipulated the retail beef market for the sum of $500 million in profit during COVID, and the current administration only fined them $56 million, and so the general public doesn't know that happened either. So they don't understand what goes on at retail price manipulation. It's done by these multinational corporations.
well, yeah, I mean, like if you look at the price of just consumer food right now, raw like vegetables, meats, and all that stuff, it feels like after COVID it became 2 or 3 times more expensive, and has not gone down at all
It's not going to.
in any way, shape, or form. And originally they were like supply chain issues. Fine, we solved that. Then they were like, oh, petroleum and the cost of diesel has gone up. Well, we were supposed to have solved that too because we happen to have the largest reserves in the world.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. We don't have the largest reserves in the world.
No.
Do we start tapping into our own reserves?
Yes.
And is that what's causing all this?
A
Or
lot of it. Well, plus you have fertilizer, you have tariff wars with China. China creates 80% of our phosphate.
okay,
Okay, phosphate's used in fertilizer. Fertilizer is used to grow these commodity crops. You see the correlations that are happening now. You have high diesel prices. You have basically fertilizer that nobody can afford. You have input cost. That's what happens. Once you add all those up at the lifestyle, who's making the money in the end? Okay, there's the same people that, design the fertilizer, that transport the fertilizer, that basically sell the fertilizer, that contract the fertilizer to the people that have to use the fertilizer. Okay, they're making a profit every time that happens, right? Okay.
Right, yeah, of course.
Okay, but then they're profiteering because they're basically making food out of, what comes from that fertilizer. Okay, how many people have profited before that gets to your child's plate? Why is it so expensive? Well, right there. And whenever the money's broken in the way that it is with basically this type of monetary reset, with us printing so much money during COVID, is that they have to get all that free money back. So how do they do it? They do it through hyperinflation, new form of taxation. A lot of people don't understand that. That's why they don't include food in the CPI model, is because they're getting their money back. They gave away a lot of free money. Nothing's free.
and it's a simple question any American can ask themselves about COVID. How many trillions of dollars were printed, and how much of that did you actually end up with?
Yeah,
And if the answer is more than 0, redo your math
yeah,
because you ended up with nothing.
Yeah.
A few companies ended up with trillions of dollars of profit
Yeah.
and will continue to keep those profits. And that didn't raise the red flags for the general American to go, what the hell is going on? How is the world completely shut down and you guys are still turning humongous profits?
Well, because they're
What
never going to
happened?
quit. They're never going to quit making profits. They're in it to win it.
Yeah, and they're winning. And
And
they're
winning big
making a
time.
killing, literally.
Well, they're profiteering off our consumption. That's it. We're the product. people don't like to think of it like that because they've never really heard that. But let's go back to ESG,
Sure.
okay? Let's go into consumers. Let's go into data. Let's go into consumption models. Let's go into convenience. Let's go into credit cards. Let's go into human behavior. Okay, they're basically creating hedge funds off your consumption model now. Human capital bonds, really. It's a human capital bond market type of thing
Okay.
where you had the housing crisis. Let's look at that. Okay, you had different types of hedge funds, right? You had your low risk, high risk, medium risk, and that's where all these mortgages got stacked and stacked and stacked, and it was very confusing. And then they just pull out, and then boom, the whole house of cards came tumbling down. They understand how to hedge their bets better now in basically food. They learned from the housing market. It's like, we can't do it that way. So they're going to basically go out there and put you in a category. They know what you're consuming. They know what your health is. They know how many prescriptions you're on.
Yep.
So they're going to say, okay, these guys are in a low risk over here. These guys are in high risk. This consumption model is in this medium risk. And so you're becoming nothing more than an ESG, and you're becoming nothing more than basically the product and how you're being tracked and traced and how you're being valued. Well, that's where people don't understand. That's how far we've come with data, analytics, data science, and data mining. We have quantum physics going on. We got AI. People don't understand the world that they're living in. It changed, and it's going to change really fast moving forward over the next 5 years.
Yeah, and that is the one thing that frightens me more than the prospect of World War III or any of the things that are
100%.
happening right now, because I'm like, all of that historically has happened before, and we've seen the end result of it. It's millions of people potentially dying, but the human species continues to thrive and learns from those mistakes. With what we have done, and we have done it, Pandora's box has been open for whomever may think that it hasn't. It has, with the whole AI move and the shift with AI. And I was looking at a washer and dryer that I bought recently because our old one broke, and it had smart AI written on it. And for the general person, it's the same thing as now comes with a camera when cell phones started having cameras, right? Or bigger screens. You just you take it. You don't even put a second thought into it.
Sure.
Because now it's everywhere. Now everything has an AI label. But if you actually ask the normal person what they thought artificial intelligence actually means, they're oblivious to it.
Of course.
They have no idea that we're playing God on a very, very serious note here. And we have yet to figure ourselves out. And now we're trying to create something new
Yeah.
out of nothing. And it's mimicking us because we're giving it our data. But we're too stupid to even know what we are.
Well, whenever you,
You
give
said it in
something,
the beginning.
Yeah.
We thought 4.7 billion years was the age of our planet.
Yeah.
Now it's 13.7.
Yeah.
It'll be 21 in a couple of years when they figure something else out. And then
Yeah.
none of that is an actual definitive answer to anything. But now we're going to allow something that has exponential growth capability in like fractions
That
of
is
seconds.
that is copying our behavior. You said something, and a lot of people don't understand. How does AI learn? It learns from the
large
humans.
data.
Well, it looks at us now,
Yeah.
and it's saying it's watching how we behave every day. Okay, it is. It's seeing everybody going this to each other, yelling at each other, hating each other. The divisiveness. They're going to say, "Well, these guys aren't doing it right. We're going to do it better. We need to eliminate that." There's so many things that could come out of this. Not like the movies out of stuff, but out of basically human behavior engineering. And this is where a lot of people don't understand. I haven't watched TV in 5 years. I do not listen to any podcast. I don't listen to any news programs. I refuse to basically let any of it through my ears or my eyes. Do you think I'm not informed? I'm informed better than most people I know. Okay.
It doesn't seem
I
like
don't
it from
need
this conversation. It seems like you're very, very informed and
why do-
ear to the ground and know exactly what's going on.
I know what I know, and I have no problem. If something bad's going to happen, I'll know it in a minute. Okay, I don't need to CNN to tell me. I don't need this centralized communication structure that people are trapped in.
Which is like the worst place to get your information
It's
nowadays.
horrible. Well, that's where people get it, though. This is the chatter. This is where we create this basically chatter that feeds anxiety. It feeds confusion. It takes logic out of our mindsets. It delivers a form of dopamine addiction that a lot of people don't realize that we are suffering from massive dopamine addiction right now. And too much dopamine leads to depression, leads to emptiness, it leads to addiction. And whenever you're not getting serotonin through dopamine production, and that's something we've done in a very short period of time, because I worked in the intelligence labs of the telecommunications industry as far as we used to study human behavior to get more people basically in the home addicted to technology. And that was years ago, but we've come a long ways. And this is what the general public doesn't understand.
Yeah.
And how do they? Well, they can't until they take a pause. Put down your phone for a day. I dare half the people out there wouldn't even dream of it. That's how bad it is.
And just a simple question you should ask yourself is, how come they give me so much for free?
Yeah, nothing's free.
You're not getting any of it for free. Every
No, you're the
single time
product.
you touch your finger to that phone, you're
Yeah.
giving another data set
Yeah.
to some algorithm somewhere that needs it.
Yeah.
Be it free maps from Google or Apple, all your email is free, all of this. And like, people don't get it, but if you explain to them that it needs to be housed in a server that actually has the transfer of this data going from your phone to an exchange
Well, that's
server,
what we
from that
used to
exchange
do.
server to somebody else. And you're like, that is extremely expensive because you're talking about literal miles of warehousing that needs to be kept at a specific temperature, cleaner than most clean rooms in scientific labs, because a speck of dust is going to screw with efficiency of these
Right.
computer systems. People don't get that, and people don't understand that someone is paying for it. And the way it's being paid for is by you touching that phone with your finger and giving it a data set that is valuable to someone else.
You're just another commodity.
That's it.
Yeah, we are the product. But as you said multiple times, and you're very correct, I just didn't realize that we were the product for every facet of life.
Of
I
course.
knew we were the product for what is the digital world and how we understand the internet. I mean, I come from original internet where,
You know, you'd have a
Exactly.
dial-up connection,
Of
and
course.
you'd have to hunt for what you're trying to find. There was no Google in the early days.
Right.
You were on, yes, there were search engines, but they were not algorithmically set up to feed you the data that they wanted you to see.
Sure.
It was just kind of like the Wild West. You'd see everything on there
Yeah.
and anything on there. And that was great because for me, it looked like we had the opportunity to actually connect globally and start this revolution.
Oh,
of
it was
the
great.
humankind.
It had a great idealistic approach to it. It should be there. I remember to really, I remember whenever people were like, yes, we can publish our papers and people can read them. We
Yes.
can get some really good peer reviews and people commented, and it was a collaboration.
Yep.
What happened? People were able to like something. We started building this interaction that was a division of interpersonal communication, and things started switching. And then whenever we did the like button on Facebook, that dopamine and how they create algorithms to deliver dopamine or to take dopamine away from the general user, we've come a long ways. And this is the basically human type of behavior analysis that has been going on silently.
And the thing is, like, if you take a moment to actually understand how an algorithm works, is it can't give you anything until you feed it something.
Sure.
So you yourself are saying, all I want to look at is big boobs, and it'll keep sending you big boobs.
Yeah.
If all you want to look at is cat videos, all you're going to get is cat videos. So,
TikTok is the master now.
and you need to make a conscious choice as to what you want to consume. I'm not saying don't be on the internet, and I'm not saying don't listen to podcasts.
No, it's a great
and
tool.
watch television, but you have the option of watching CNN or Fox, or you have the option of watching something that's not mainstream.
you know, and you can go with
Pick a couple of podcasts that you learn from and that you put into practice. You go test. What people don't do now with their consumption of all the audio and video content, they don't go test it. They don't go test and see individually, well, if that's so valuable, that information, I need to go test that. How does it pertain to me? I'm going to find out. I'm not going to be Socratic about it. I'm not going to be intellectual about it. That's what we've become, overly Socratic and intellectual with very little utility or application. And so if we keep doing that, then you are nothing more than a byproduct. And you're nothing more than the recycling bin of that corporate structure that we've fallen victim to. And it's hard to look at the mirror, but that's what a lot of people do. Like I said, they come in through the Beef Initiative. They come through suffering, agricultural poverty, suffering, health, financial. It doesn't matter. You find your place in basically, you can't have joy without suffering. And what we found, with the Beef Initiative, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to give a reset to people. I wanted to do a vertically integrated system of understanding of what lifestyle is, not this fabricated marketing plan that everybody consumes every day. And, I know the joy of basically being a cattleman. I know the joy of growing up in small town Texas. I know the joy of feeding a community. I know the joy of raising livestock. And once you're in the Beef Initiative, you have access to so many hundreds of producers that actually are saying the same thing that I just said. And they're the ones that you want to know, not CNN, not this centralized communication structure that's making you full of anxiety, that basically feeds off your fear. And basically that fear basically gets more fear, and you become a marketing arm of the fear patrol. And so this is what people need to start understanding. It's not as bad as they're trying to depict. And it's a lot better whenever you separate yourself from that centralized communication and that centralized food system. Whenever you have a microprocessing center, or you have producers that basically have control of their cattle all the way to your fork, your life gets better. It's as simple as that. You go test it. Everybody out there watching this, whenever you can go out there and shake a rancher producer's hand, establish a relationship with them, something happens. There's an obligation there that you don't have whenever you're shopping at Chick-fil-A or the supermarket. Think about that. You feel obligated, said, man, I know who this person is now. I know what they're doing. I know how they're raising this beef. I know how they're raising this product, or whatever it is. You become obligated to help them and to be that marketing arm instead of the marketing arm of all of the fear porn that's being propagated through basically the centralized social media systems. And your health gets better. Your pocketbook gets better. You get out of the city. You do something like Tucker Carlson said a couple months ago. He goes, every American should get in their car if they live in the city and drive 500 miles in any direction. Go see what you see. I do the same challenge. I've done it. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look good.
I didn't do 500 today. I did about 400, close to it.
Yeah.
But I've driven cross country before, and I know what Tucker's saying, and he makes a great point.
Mm-hmm.
But what I would say is that once you do leave the big city and you travel around and you get to talk to people, we're so much more alike than we are different.
100%.
At the end of the day, 99% of us don't really care who the guy in office is. We care about the bottom line of how do we have a better life and a future for our families,
Yes.
our kids, their children. Because I've always had this mindset of I can't think about me and just my kids. I got to think about their kids too, because it's not that far away. My kids are small, but they're about 20 years away from starting their own families. That's a blink of an eye, and that's just long enough to destroy everything.
Yeah, it is.
It's just long enough. And I feel like everybody that I've gotten the chance to meet and to speak to are all in the same boat. Everybody, even the wealthiest of people, still have that fear in the back of their head of going like, what does tomorrow look like if systematic destruction happens through an AI system or World War III? Because it doesn't matter how much money you got in the world. If it's on your soil and you're being hurt for it, there's nothing you can do. How far are you going to run, and how long are you going to run for?
You're not. You're going to comply. And if you don't have a good, basically, relationship management system built into your lifestyle, it's as simple as that. We're not communicating right now. We're more connected than we've ever been in human history, but we actually had the worst communication that we've ever had.
We're connected, but we're so disconnected.
Exactly. And you hear that all the time, but it's true. People don't know how to have conversations anymore. That's why my big moniker is go shake your rancher's hand.
Yeah.
Walk up to a man, or a woman, shake their hand, look them in the eye, and say, hey, why do you do what you do? I want to know. Would you educate me? Then say, how can I help you? We're going to say, well, we do this so we can basically feed people. Well, what can I do to make you successful? Once you do that, just once, sometimes it might take more than once. People don't know how to take that anymore when you walk up to somebody. I've had ranchers like, is this guy fed?
Right.
But once you kind of, you see something happen, and I think that really is kind of the missing ingredient for a lot of people. It is a recipe for if you don't know how things are, well, it takes that fear away.
Yes, sir.
And this was 3 years ago. I shook Justin Trammell's hand right there, probably 50 yards from where I was born. Now we have a rancher storefront in Canyon, Texas. Now we're selling copious amounts of beef that his family's raising. I've got my own white label beef line coming. We're selling produce that's clean. We're not having to ask permission to do this. We just know how to do it. We know how to vertically integrate back into our community. I tell everybody, build out locally and broadcast globally. And that's what you and I are doing. I mean, think about that. How did we meet? How does that happen? It's not through, centralized media control. It's through a decentralized relationship management. We have a mutual friend that said, you guys have to meet.
Yeah, and I'm so happy that friend, and I won't mention his name because he does love his privacy and his
And
anonymity.
everybody deserves that, yeah.
And, I made a conscious decision to put myself in front of the camera in the hopes of having these beautiful conversations, but I know most people don't want to do that.
And that's fine. But,
And
and like I was telling you before, I used to have, I had stage fright my whole life. I didn't talk till I was 5 years old. I've always been, very, very, I've always observed. Observational science I'm very good at. And I never went to university. I self-taught myself technology. I never relied on anybody. I grew up doing observational science, experiential training. This is how I learned, and this is how I built the Beef Initiative. And that's what we need to bring, especially our youth, our children. We need to get them away from those tablets.
So let's tap into that a little bit.
You bet.
Because you mentioned leaving here at 19, going to Austin. Now you just mentioned that no college, formal education in the sense of the word that people,
Right. Sure.
But man, I've learned that intelligence and being smart has nothing to do with the amount of, frames and certificates you can pop on a wall. Some of the people with most of them on a wall are the dumbest people I've ever met.
By far.
And then other people that unassuming and just live their life are some of the smartest people I've met. So I'm really interested in, because I think my audience would be interested in knowing, how does one go down the path of self-discovery and self-actualization the way you did without maybe going to the college, but also being very intelligent and well-read.
Right.
And how did you end up in Austin and going into the tech industry? Austin and kind of
19 when I left and everything, and getting hurt and everything. Yeah, let's just talk about the journey, I guess, right? I remember I was here in Canyon. I was 19, and, I tell you, I come from agricultural poverty, but I also come from a broken family. My dad was, he was an electrician. He grew up in, here the same way, tough man, but he broke his back probably when I was about 13, 14.
Okay.
And this is whenever I got introduced into the chemical engineering of our life. He got very addicted to pain pills. He had back surgeries and everything. So he became very not productive at a very important time in my life, right?
Okay.
And so our family really did deteriorate through his injury and through basically the chemical enhancement of his injury that led into opioid addiction. So I was pretty much thrown out into the world pretty young. I left at 17 and the home. And right when I was 19 years old, I looked at this town that I grew up in, and it was sad. It was a ghost town. To me, it wasn't what I had in mind for my life. I had $175, and I knew one person in Austin, Texas, and I got in my car and I ended up in Austin, Texas with $125. I was 19 years old. I had $125, and that was it. I didn't have a family. I didn't have much going on at that time. And I didn't have money for school. I was supposed to go to college. I had a couple of scholarships to play football right here from Canyon, Texas. and I had a lot of opportunity. But once again, I came from agricultural poverty, and my family was the first removed off that farm, off that ranch, and it had consequence. And I didn't have credit. You didn't have student loans back there. You didn't have access to university unless you had a way of paying for, getting grants or something. It wasn't, thank goodness it wasn't like, what they've done in the last 10 years with education in the United States. But I just started my life over, and I said, well, I'm in Austin. What are you going to do? So I started meeting people, and I basically saw that a lot of people around me were very smart, but they were going to the University of Texas. So I just started going to class with them. And I fell into technology, and I wasn't paying for school. I was just going to school. And so I basically infiltrated the University of Texas for a couple of years and did whatever classes I want, because back then you could just go and, maybe I was a cousin, maybe I was whatever. We just had fun with it.
Right.
I lived on West Campus, but what I started to do is I started teaching myself technology. It was 1990-ish era, and I was young, and that was the wall had been, torn down. Communism was over with. The new world, everything was going to be beautiful, and it was exciting. But Austin was becoming a technology hub very fast. And so all of a sudden you had all these new types of jobs, and you didn't have to have degrees, and you could just have basically application results. So it was a form of experiential training that you had in the early stages of technology during the dot-com boom. I fell right into the dot-com boom. And so I could go in there and bullshit my way into a job, make pretty damn good money, and that's what I started doing. And so I became very good at technology very fast. And I worked in all kinds of different sectors of technology, from startups to corporations. I would work contracts sometimes for like a year, and then I wouldn't work for a year. I would go travel the world. So I was in a very, very, very unique position at the time in my life to where I could innovate in a way that I was taught by growing up in small town Texas, growing up the way that I did, that type of learning, that type of experiential learning. And it did me very well. It gave me, because I've always had wanderlust. I've been wanting to travel around the world. I grew up watching Jacques Cousteau dive the blue hole. And then I said, well, I'm going to do that. And so I went and did it when I got older. I floated down, the Mekong River in Belize. I floated down the Mekong River in, the Golden Triangle. I've really stewarded a lifetime, but it came from that type of learning and that type of wanderlust that I afforded myself. If you look at today's 19-year-old, what are they told to do? It's all institutionalized. It's all indoctrination, or it's just poverty, or it's just, I'm going to be a bum. What do you have right now?
That's
We've taken
true.
trade. My dad was an electrician. I'm a carpenter. I'm a metalsmith. I'm a blacksmith. I do metal art. I'm weld. I can do all kinds of stuff. But that's how I was raised. I was rebuilding engines whenever I was 12, 13, 14 years old. So we don't have that anymore. That type of growing up, that type of stewardship allowed me to go into Austin, Texas at 19 and find my place in society. And at that time, it was in innovation. In that type of technology innovation, it was fascinating because it was the base layer of the internet. It wasn't this application layer of the internet.
Yeah, I mean, it was the infrastructure building.
Exactly.
of
This
it.
was TCP/IP. This is DNS. This is DHCP. Nobody even knows what that is, but those are the pipeways of communication. That's what carries all these zeros and ones. And I thought that was fascinating. And I got into networking, believe it or not. So I understand networking very well from a technology standpoint. How it used to be decentralized. The internet was basically a form of warfare that was a decentralized communication system. Think about it.
Well, yeah, because before you had the internet, you had the intranet.
Yeah.
And that was literally just governments trying to connect to each other, or the same government trying to connect different divisions.
Exactly.
Or universities that were doing top secret research for the government would have a way to transmit information and receive information
100%.
securely,
Right.
because nobody knew that it was even going on because it didn't exist outside of a very small, like a bubble.
Well, we were
I
sending
guess.
bits, we were sending bits across, it was like you could, this part of Texas, okay, Texas Rangers, it was used to, Texas Rangers didn't know anything.
Right.
But what they did know is they knew how to innovate because they didn't have a bunch of authority over them. Texas Rangers developed a communication system that they basically used to be able to communicate to identify raids of the Comanches that is still used in our military communications apparatus today.
What is that called?
I can't remember. It's a form of signaling, though. It was a light communication where you could communicate through light systems for vast distances.
Oh, interesting.
It is. It's very interesting. I can't remember. There's a podcast on YouTube talks about the Texas Rangers, but it's a good one. I'll share it with you.
Definitely, yeah. That seems interesting.
It is.
Because before we have what we know as communication today, people were always trying to find ways to communicate without being caught by the enemy,
Right.
without being intercepted
Exactly.
by the enemy, and,
Exactly.
and I think we've lost so much of that whole individual privacy portion of it, where,
Peer to peer.
where it was such a big deal back in the day of like keeping things private. I still don't understand why we have this innate feeling that we need to share everything with everyone at all times. From the breakfast that we are having to our child being born to our wedding anniversary, and all of this needs to be on the internet for some reason, and because we want other people to go in and, just like you said, click like. I don't want any of that stuff.
It comes back to that, it's in the ego that we have today as a human species. That type of yearning for that type of attention is a chemical engineering of sorts. It's our own chemicals in our own brains that have been engineered to crave that dopamine, because you get a high off of posting. You get a high off of getting people to say, oh, you're a badass, or you're beautiful, or what a great, your baby is beautiful. That's a high. It's a natural high. And so they learn how to basically engineer that through data and through behavior. And that's how we got here, because we had two-party line communication systems. You had more of a peer-to-peer opportunity to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Now you don't have that. You don't have the opportunity just to talk to one person. And if you do have that opportunity, a lot of people don't even feel comfort in that. They don't feel the same high. And so communication has basically been chemically engineered in a way that most people do not understand. I know I was in a think tank up at MIT outside of Boston in 2017, 18, and it was fascinating what they said back then. I knew what's coming down the pipe because I got out of big tech, out of Austin in 2016. And so, but the type of human behavior analysis has been gone to get us to where we are. People are not aware of the type of money that's been spent. We used to sit in boardrooms in technology, and we would look at each other and say, talking to engineers, talking to CTOs, talking to people that knew what the hell was going on, and we'd say, we don't know where this is going. Because it was hard. There was a lot of years that we were like, this sucks. This is not fun. But we knew that we were making good money. It was innovative. It was technology. We were creating the technology, right? Well, right now, we're not creating the technology that is useful. We're creating technology now that is basically taking away our freedoms of our own selves.
It seems like what we create now is more to keep us glued to this thing.
It is.
Whatever that thing it's a tablet, a phone, your TV, whatever it is, rather than ingest some information and then go out and discuss it. Like what the nightly news used to be was to set you up for what you were going to have conversations about the next day with your colleagues at work. You would talk about what you saw in the news and did you hear what's going on and what are we going to do? The Berlin Wall's coming down or whatever it is. But now it's not just giving you the information, it's also giving you the opinion that you should be taking with it.
Of course. It's gaslighting. It's everything that people don't even realize that is happening to them.
Yeah,
We didn't get a manual to operate this technology, these phones.
no, not at
We
all.
didn't get any understanding about it. They used to be free. You sign up, you get a free phone, man. You know, Obama gave away millions of free phones. Think about that. You can still go out and get a free phone now. You can go anywhere on the planet. You know what the number one thing that we have in common right now? Everybody's got a damn phone
Oh yeah,
in this world. Think about that.
there's
In,
places
in
in
tribes in Africa, they got their phones.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. Is like there's places in rural India that have better phone reception
Yeah.
than water and other infrastructure that is needed for like
100%.
sewer, water, gas. They may not have any of that, but they got blazing fast Wi-Fi and
Yeah.
good phone reception, so they can just be on the internet all day
Yep.
long.
And they talk about, you know, giving free internet to communities, free internet to the poor. All that is like, hey, we're going to keep tabs on you very close.
oh yeah,
And it's a form of track and trace. It's a form of behavior analysis. It's a form of basically making you the product, everything that we talk about. So what is your relationship with this world right now? That's what I ask people to do. What is your relationship? I know what my relationship with this world, because ever since I was young, I've had wanderlust. I've done it on my own. I've went out there and I've seen this world for what it truly is. And it's not what's being depicted right now.
No.
You know, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. And it's not as hard you're not ignoring anything, you're witnessing. And I think a lot of people are now living life through emotional reaction, then first observing, witnessing, taking a pause, and saying, what is my relationship with this situation? What is the relationship with the emotion that I'm not having right now, that I'm not going to have? Witness first and then react. Right now, it's just full on reaction.
Oh yeah, I mean, you could look at something as the war that's happening right now between Ukraine and Russia.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to have an opinion that says I support Ukraine.
Right.
I don't have an opinion that supports either side,
No.
but that's not a popular opinion to have. You can't say that I'm on the side of the mothers that will forever cry for their children that are never coming home.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to say that because
Yeah.
for some reason, one side of those mothers are the enemy and the other side are not.
And nobody.
Who chooses what side is the enemy and who is the friendly? Someone I've never met, someone I know nothing about. Why would I allow them to influence my opinion? I'd rather just stay with my own opinion.
Mhm.
But I don't think most people do that because they're so afraid of virtue signaling and being part of the it crowd. And it doesn't matter what side you pick, but you got to pick a side. And you can't just say, I don't want to pick a side because I have no dog in this fight.
Well, and that's one thing that I refuse to do, because it's a political and it's a monetary, deception right now. And I can identify, I know exactly what's going on in Ukraine and Russia, and I've never had, and I never will have a public opinion about it, except that I'm agnostic, man. Good luck. It's not my world. It's not what I'm not going to participate, and I don't validate deceptions. If I identify something as deception, I don't have an opinion about it because that's validating it. And so my viewpoint has worked very good for me, and I'm very secure with knowing what's going on in this world.
Right.
And a lot of people don't know that they can be the same way because they're too addicted to that type of consuming, that type of reactionary behavior, right? And whenever you are able to set back and let's say a reset, I've got doctors that they're like, family doctors, or they're, for adolescents or, children, but this one particular doctor will not see that child, and she meets the parents, and she won't work with the children until the parents do a 48-hour bone broth fast. Think about this. A family doctor saying, I'm not going to talk to you, parent, about your child's health or behavior until you do a reset. Let's get to the source of the seed of the issue here. Okay, we got children with fatty liver disease in the United States. Are they ranching already? Are they baking food already? No. They're at the mercy, and they are totally at the mercy of an adult consumer demand and an adult consumption model that is basically stealing their innocence and their health. Okay, the adults are the ones that need to take the pause and the reset here. And if you are not able to do that, then maybe there is an issue as far as what's going on with your life. Identify it. Is it ignorance? Is it complacency? Is it fear? What is it that makes you not want to change, that makes you addicted to continuing to scroll and swipe and consume, even though you know that food is not good for you? Why do you desire what you desire? Are you really hungry, or are you being nutritionally starved? We're overfed and malnutrition and suffering through malnutrition in the United States of America.
Yeah.
I was in Thailand. You asked earlier about Thailand. They have homeless. They have poverty. It looks a hell of a lot better over there than it does here.
Interesting.
You look at people and how they suffer, and you look at homeless people in a city like Chiang Mai, Thailand. They're happy for the most part. The poverty is different, and I see it. It's a different form of poverty in the United States than it is in these third world countries that we say that we're better than. No, there's something that has shifted here. You look at California. I've been through all of LA. You go down to Austin. You go look you go look at San Francisco. Go look at Detroit. Go look at Baltimore. Go through these big cities. Go through Chicago.
Go to Philadelphia.
Go to Philadelphia. My producer, designer
what
for
is
the Beef
going on?
Initiative, he left the streets of Philadelphia, and now he's the lead design production producer of the Beef Initiative. He's seen it firsthand. And what did he do? He found beef. He found the cow. He found a vertical integration into food first, and then his life changed forever.
It's saddening.
It is.
Especially that whole idea of we are better than another group of humans.
It's that false
They're
entitlement.
other humans.
Yeah.
What a horrifying way to even think or imagine the world, because nothing else in the animal kingdom does that.
No.
No lion ever thinks they're better than a lion that's in another part of the world. You're a lion, I'm a lion. They might fight for territory, but that's a very different thing. That's a survival tactic. That's not a superiority complex. And we need to get away from that.
Where does that come? I mean, let's talk, because I did behavior analysis for years, right? We had to. That's what part of what we're doing is research analysis. Where does that come from? Where does that judgment come from? It comes from a false ego.
Yes.
That's what it is. A false ego is false entitlement. That's whenever I can say I'm better than you. You're bad, I'm good.
Have you seen that Guy Ritchie film, Revolver?
No, I have not.
It's a beautiful film, and I won't ruin it because I know you haven't watched television in 5 years.
Right.
Maybe at some point, if you want to watch a movie, it is a beautiful depiction of what the ego is.
Right.
And a lot of people walk away from that movie not understanding it. So Guy Ritchie did a whole explanation of like what was going on and what it is.
Right.
But if you understand that film, you inherently understand that we are our own worst enemy. I mean, I myself am my own worst enemy because of the ego that sits inside of my head.
Sure.
And it controls me until I get to the realization that, no, I control it.
Yeah.
And when you do that, and I'm not even going to pretend that I'm even there. I fight with my ego on a regular basis.
Daily.
It's a lifetime struggle to take total control over your own ego. But it is, I think the closest thing to euphoria that I could think of is having actual control over the biggest annoyance that ever existed for any individual person.
My father, the counselor, he had a phrase: "Your ego is not your amigo."
Yes.
And that's true. And I've done tons of travel, man. It's a fascinating life I've lived, the places I've been. But what I really started in the 20s is I really did look at philosophy. I did look at philosophies, and Buddhism. Buddhism, people say it's a religion. It's not a religion. It's philosophy. It's a philosophy of the mind. Is how do you get away from suffering? Without suffering, you have no joy. Without joy, you have no suffering.
Right.
And
It's
there's
the yin and the yang.
Yeah, and there's 4 noble truths. What are those 4 noble truths? Is like most suffering comes from ego, of course, but through hatred.
Yeah.
Greed. And then what's
Envy.
envy?
guessing?
Yeah, jealousy. And in Buddhism, they call it not knowing. And we can say it's kind of ignorance.
Yes.
And that's what that would mean. It's like you don't know the outcome of your actions. And so if you don't know what damage you're going to do, then you just don't go there, right? But if you know the value of something, then you can go forward. So that's where suffering comes from, is, you know, that hatred, that greed, that form of ignorance. And I don't think right there, that last 2 minutes, people can change their lives by saying, okay, what am I feeling right now? Witness what you're feeling. Is it because of the suffering I'm suffering right now? Is it because I'm being greedy? Is it because I'm being mean, angry, hatred? Or am I just confused, ignorant, or just not knowing? Fearful. You know, where is the suffering come from? I think if we did that more often, then that's that pause, that where you eliminate that ego.
Yeah, but Slim, you're asking people to do hard things.
I know.
Come on, man. You're asking people to do very, very
Well, they
difficult
think it's
things.
hard, but it's not. It's not hard. It's a lifestyle.
You know, when
I've been doing breath work since I was in my 20s. Before I started Beef Initiative, I was going to go travel and do freshwater diving, fresh air, breath diving. And I've been doing breath work my whole life. And what a I cannot start my day unless I do breath work.
Who's that one guy that is crazy about the breathwork stuff? And
Wim Hof.
yes, Wim Hof, the Wim Hof method.
Yeah, and it's a fascinating journey. It's free. You can learn it on YouTube, and that's all. You don't have to go to university. You know.
And you mentioned it in there. I wanted to actually mention a few names that if you actually wanted to get yourself separated from mainstream and listen to people that have good things to speak about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of those people is Lex Friedman. His
Okay.
podcast is amazing. He's from MIT, and he's
Yeah, he's a smart dude.
he's a very, very smart individual. Another person that I really like is Andrew Huberman.
Mm-hmm. Neuroscientist.
Yes,
Yes.
neuroscientist, and he recently
He's
came under
pretty
attack
sharp.
by some idiot that didn't know what she was doing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was a hit piece that came out on him, and the entire world kind of rallied around him and goes like, "What? You're an idiot. You should have never written this piece about this man because you're so unequivocally wrong about everything that you just wrote." So what? He had a couple of bad relationships in his past. Who hasn't?
Mm-hmm.
But none of what you said has anything to do with the substance of what he's trying to tell people.
Once again, that's the gaslighting. That's the basically virtue signaling.
Right.
That's everything that we live in right now. That's a lack of accountability by people's actions. If you're going to accuse somebody, you better be able to, back it up with truths.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
And two other people that are just badass people to follow. David Goggins is one of them,
Oh, I love
and Jocko
yes.
Wilkin.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jocko. I always screw up his last name. I'm sorry, Jocko, but I love you. And
Right.
your stuff is amazing because both of these individuals are like the extreme of being fit and caring about your health.
Mm-hmm.
And David Goggins didn't start out being a skinny cross-country runner or anything. He was a fat man that made a decision one day to say, "I'm going to put down the donuts."
Yeah.
And he's one of the craziest human beings you'll ever meet, but also
Mhm.
one of the smartest human beings you'll ever meet.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be somewhere in the middle of that. You don't have to be David Goggins and do 150-mile runs, but you also can't be sitting on your ass eating burgers all day.
Well, it's called rationalization and justification. We can rationalize, and Goggins has that thing. It's like, oh, yeah, man, I'll take it easy. And all the boys say, yeah, man, we're just going to watch a game. Screw that, and people need more Goggins in their life. We need more Jockos. We need more Lexes. But what we really need, what I call it right now, all these young men that go out there and people want to do good. And, your motivation is crap. Motivation gets you out the front door. What we're lacking is discipline.
Yes.
And this is what I call a lot of people, and it's kind of rough around the edges when I say this, but, people that, try to stop a bad behavior, a bad habit, and they're going to change their lives through diet or whatever, or working out or whatever it is. Well, now they just become addicted to motivational videos.
and do nothing
and
about
they
it.
don't do anything about it because the motivation don't last. You've got to find something in you through that suffering. And that's kind of like goes back to, me and Austin. Austin gave me a launch pad across the world.
Right.
I met fascinating people. I learned fascinating job skill. I became a metalsmith, and a research analyst in Austin, Texas.
Which just like they're so far disconnected.
It
If you
is.
think about it, a research analyst and a metal worker, and you're kind of like, how did that transpire? How did that intersect happen? And this is why I always say, talk to people.
Yes.
Just strike a conversation, because you
Yes.
have no idea the guy in the cowboy hat may have done some of the coolest shit you've never heard of.
Well, look at that jacket behind me.
We were going to talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you mentioned it, and I've been trying to figure it out, but I can't figure it out. So how about you give me a little bit of understanding on what I'm looking at, because this is a very cool jacket.
Well, and
it
this
looks
is-
like a racing jacket.
It's basically Moto Fango, and it's a really cool jacket that I found in Chiang Mai, Thailand.
Okay.
What am I doing in Chiang Mai, Thailand? Well, I do global beef intelligence, global food intelligence. I do international lifestyle stuff, and my journey into the Beef Initiative, I basically met a guy named Sid, and he came to my very first conference that I had in Kerrville, Texas in 2021. And we were sitting at the YO Hotel in Kerrville, Texas, the old ranch hotel. It's really cool. It's got deer, it's got longhorns. It's a ranch hotel.
Okay.
Got a big fireplace there. We're sitting there, and first time I went to Thailand in Asia, I rode a motor. I went over the first time with a buddy.
Okay.
He was a horticulturalist, and he bought orchids from Thailand, and he got them back to Florida and Houston, tropical areas of the United States, grow them, and then he would sell them. So he was my inlet into Thailand. And so I ended up riding a motorcycle across Thailand and just, whoa, this is cool. And I never got back there. And so many years later, I'm sitting with Sid. Well, he moved to Thailand
Permanently.
from Manhattan during COVID, right before COVID hit.
Oh, okay.
So at this time, he's been in Thailand for over 4 years. And he's telling me everything. And I said, I'm going to come see you in Thailand. And he's like, yeah, he hears that all the time. Within a year, I was in Thailand. First, I went to Australia. We had several conferences over in Australia, the Beef Initiative. And I got friends over there and everything. Then my son was with me when we went to Thailand. And we were sitting there, and that was my son's gift for graduating high school or whatever it was during COVID. And we went and saw Sid, but I said, you've got to do something with this because he's into motorcycles. And so we started talking. I said, this is a rite of passage for my boy. Okay. And I said, we got to do something. I said, you need to, because he's a motorcycle enthusiast, a very intelligent man, and he's living in Thailand, and it's just absolutely beautiful over there. I said, engineer something, and I'll work with you, and we'll collaborate. And he created something called the Rite of Passage. And so this year in October, last year in October, I flew back to Thailand, and I stayed in Thailand for about 75 days.
Wow.
And we went and did his first Rite of Passage. And 8 of us rode a couple of thousand kilometers across northern Thailand. And he basically road mapped out something that was a fascinating ride on a motorcycle. We ate all kinds of great food, we got to do Muay Thai training. We got to, see places that you would never think. We got to go to temples. We got to go everything. But it was basically a rite of passage for a lot of young men that needed that rite of passage. And it's about pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, facing some fears, and going and do it in a part of the world that you need to see and understand. And so it's kind of a beginning point. And that Moto Fango now is going to be kind of a phrase that I use, because now Sid has got 4 rite of passages. They're international bike tours that he's going to do all from Japan to Asia to the United States. And if you go to like rideofpassage.live right now, you can kind of go see what we did.
Okay.
But that jacket has a lot of meaning for it, because I found that jacket for $12.
Thanks. Very cool.
And what it is, it shows you that I lived in Thailand for 75 days. I didn't spend that much money whatsoever. I was healthy. I got to see the world. The whole world was totally different over there. They are in a different spirit these days than what we're seeing in the Western Hemisphere.
In what way? That's a very interesting
They're
to
not
say.
being pumped war.
different
They're not
system.
being pumped fear. They're not being pumped. They get out there and they're living their lives. So they have street food like in Thailand. It's a cultural thing. The culture is not afraid. Their culture looks at each other in a different way. Their culture is respecting each other. They have market access to a sense of freedom that is spirit driven, not basically fear driven.
Okay.
This is different. I met the granddaughter of General Lee of the Fifth Army of China, the Red Army of China that fled China during the Cultural Revolution. And she talked, and I said, why did y'all pick Thailand to come to basically fight the cultural war? She goes, well, it's Buddhism here. And what that means, it's not a religion. A lot of people say it's a religion, but it's a philosophy. When you ride a motorcycle in Thailand, everybody's terrified. It's on the left side of the road, okay? You obey basically no traffic laws over there. What you have basically people respecting. It's a flow.
Okay. I've seen those. Like, there's videos where you see that you're like, how is everybody not crashing into each other? And
It's called etiquette. It's called respect. We're all in this together. It's congested. It's crazy. We know, and it's tough.
we just got to make it work.
Let's all be respectful. It's etiquette. They have a different etiquette over there that we have lost over here.
And you think we had that before?
I know we did. I grew up in small town Texas. We still have it here today. People that are coming in here today are so grateful. It's like, wow, people want to talk. People want to, they want to share. They want to show respect. They don't want to judge. They're tired of the divisiveness. They're tired of the confusion. And they're tired of not feeling good. They're tired of inflated food prices. And that's what I see as a problem here, is that we don't know how to respect each other. And it's a problem. You have tons of people that are respectful of each other in a silent way, but we don't have an outwardly showing of respect for each other in this apparatus that we've basically built.
I see that because we don't say hi to each other
No.
when we're walking down the street. I mean,
can't
a
open
lot
the
more
door
of it
for
here in
people.
Dallas than
Right.
it is in I grew up in LA.
Right.
So most of my youth was spent in California and most of my 20s and 30s, actually. But when I moved to Dallas, it was a very different realization that people actually say hi to each other and hold the door for one another
Yeah.
and have at least a modicum of mutual respect. But in LA, it's just like, keep your head down and keep moving forward, because, if you look at somebody, then it's a fight.
Yeah.
And here it's just like, man, we can say hi to each other. And just, even today when I was just walking down the street, and because I want to kind of like see what the town looked like, everybody's so lovely.
Yeah.
Everybody, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, how are you? Have a great day, have a blessed weekend. Words that some people may find as being a problem and find being...
Why are they suspect of being a human?
Yeah, and it
Well, it's the
confuses me.
religion of self instead of knowing thyself. Let's break that down. Whenever you have the religion of self, it's about me, 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 me. You can't respect anybody else if all you're worried about is you. Okay? You do not receive until you first give.
Right.
Whenever you know thyself and you're comfortable with yourself and everything that you've got going on, your actions, your consumption model, if you know thyself, then you're going to perpetuate that onto other people, that you will show yourself in a respectful way instead of a divisive way. And this is what we're doing in America. We are so unattached to ourselves and knowing who we are that what we have to have is basically have to have that division, because I'm better than you, damn it. I don't care what you did. Don't say hi to me. I'm suspect of you. I don't trust you. Why would I trust you? Why would you do something kind to me? I don't know how to treat myself in kind.
Yeah, because, and I completely agree with that. It's like in California, and I was guilty of the same thing I was guilty of the same thing of, if someone was nice to me, what do they want?
Yeah.
Why are they being nice?
Right.
What's in it for them?
Yeah.
Was the mentality. And I can genuinely say Dallas doesn't have that mentality. Dallas is, I know it's a big city, but they have respect, and people just are nice to be nice, because all they want in return is the same thing, is be nice and be respectful to me. It's funny when like California friends sometimes will ask me about, what's the, is the LGBTQ community persecuted in Texas? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, nobody cares.
Yeah.
If adults want to be adults, let them be adults.
Exactly.
We couldn't care less.
Yeah.
But we do care if you're trying to outwardly throw that into my life and, just smear it in my children's face. Everybody likes that.
Yeah.
But you know what? We don't do the heterosexual thing in public to
Sure.
others because it's the same mutual respect. I don't want to see this just as much as you don't want to see that. So how about neither of us do this because it affects our children?
Mm-hmm.
And let's just see what happens if we can mutually respect one another.
Yeah.
We don't hate anybody in Dallas. And I probably feel like most of Texas doesn't hate anybody, truly. There might be a minority of people that are ignorant, but that's fine.
I'm a sixth generational Texan, and I'll definitely stand up for Texas. Texas is a different place.
Yes, man.
It really
yes, sir.
is.
I mean,
It really is. And as far as anything that they try to bring in, as far as, how people behave, it bullshit. Most people in Texas, especially small town Texas, it's just the kindness. You got dumbasses, you got smart asses, but overall, basically adequate of human spirit is pretty damn solid.
You can easily go anywhere in Texas and you can see a room with Muslims, Jews, Christians,
Oh, yeah.
atheists,
Yeah.
agnostics, Seventh-day Adventists. They can all be sitting in the same exact room breaking bread.
mm-hmm.
And nobody has any disrespect for one another.
And that's what
Nobody
you see
hates one another.
And that's what you see in Thailand. You have Muslims, you have Buddhists, you have Christians, you have Hindu, you have everything there.
And everybody
you
just is okay with each
And
other.
everybody goes and marvels in the beauty of Buddhist temples.
Yeah.
Or the Muslims mosques, or the Hindu temples. They're everywhere. But mostly it's Buddhism, sure. But where does Buddhism come from? Well, it's kind of Hinduism. There'll be, why don't we not know this stuff as Americans? Why don't we not know the world as we get into this globalization? We are being globalized. There's a really good phrase, and it's kind of hard to remember. Globalization has happened. Okay.
Mhm.
We basically know the globe now. We know how to talk to each other across this planet
Yeah.
within a split second. But do we really know the benefits of being able to do that? No. We have complete ignorance of all other cultures, of how other things are done, other monetary systems, other food systems, other religions, other philosophies. We are totally ignorant. Being as connected as we are, oh my gosh, man, we don't need universities. We need basically
We need basic education.
we need
how to
basic
be human.
education. We need core belief systems that are built in the way that mine was.
If you told the typical person that Judaism, Christianity, and the Islamic faith all believe in the exact same God,
Yep.
just the messenger's different,
Right.
it would boggle their mind.
They don't know that
It's
Muslims.
the same thing up there. I don't know what it is, but everybody believes the exact same thing created them. Just
They don't
somebody
know
else told
this.
them the story.
They don't know this. They don't know that in Islam that Jesus is one of the most revered prophets there is.
And he's also mentioned in Judaism too. Maybe not as the Son
Exactly.
of God, but he is
Of course.
there. And he is also predated into the three main religions in the Hindu text.
Sure.
And
That's
the
true.
Epic of Gilgamesh talks about
Yep, there
a
you go.
Jesus figure. And
You get people starting down that last one you said, that'll
The
blow people,
Gilgamesh?
yeah,
Yeah.
that'll blow people's minds.
that we've proven without a shadow of a doubt, it predates the biblical time.
It does.
And it talks about the great floods. And
Yeah.
it talks about a Noah type of a character and the boat. And it talks about a Jesus type of character. And you're like, hey,
yeah.
look, it seems like this has always been there.
Well,
We're just arguing over, like a couple of phrases here and there.
dogmatic approaches get dogmatic returns.
Yeah.
That's as simple as that. So if you're going to be dogmatic, then you're going to fight. That's it. You're going to argue. But if you bring that type of respect and adequate to anybody's belief systems without judgment, but as witness, without emotion, and saying, okay, that's not my thing, that's not my belief, but man, I respect you for being that committed.
Yeah.
What's the problem with that? Well, we can't do it because we're socially engineered in a way that we don't understand. And
We have this innate hate for one another for no reason whatsoever. And we can't even come to terms with the fact that the lies of other men from thousands of years ago are propagating this hate towards one another.
Yeah.
Kings and kingdoms decided to say that this side is bad and this side is good and killed anyone in their own team that said no. And this has just gone on for thousands of years. And none of us want to take a step back going like, all men lie. Why do we think that these were the only ones that didn't?
History is always the same. It's just a different freaking chapter, man.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that. They don't understand that we don't progress. Human behavior has always suffered from the same things. It's just a different medium of exchange of suffering. What is causing the suffering? It's always what I told you. What are those tools that are causing that? Is it a new monetary system, the new food system? That's what's different. But the suffering has always been the same. And that's just what people can't understand. They don't know how to identify. Oh, we're so far advanced. We're moved away from that. No, we're not.
We're not.
No, we're not. Especially whenever our farmers and ranchers now are being turned into serfs. And a lot of people don't even know what that means. Well, we established America because you had nobles and you couldn't farm the land, so you were just a serf of that land. And that's all you were able to do is like, thank you, I'll grow you potatoes. Let me, thank you for letting me farm this land, oh noble one.
Right.
What is today's economic environment, our agricultural system now?
Well, the nobility has become a corporation.
Exactly.
And,
It's
tax revenue and this and that, but it's the same thing, really.
You don't. We have people that plant seeds. We have people that spray the seeds. We have people that own the land the seeds go on. We have corporations that own the seeds that you never have control of, that you have to use their protocol of input system. I mean, it just never goes away. It's just compartmentalization, high profit, high profit, high profit, high profit. Who suffers? The communities, the land, and us, the individual, as far as our health, our mind, our body, and our spirit.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to take that pause and realize what I just said is true and factual, and you are not afraid of a little bit of change that benefits you, that gets you back into being more of the human spirit that we all yearn for, and there's a model there, and it's a lot more simple. I mean, you look at our beef industry. Let's go to that because we're in cow country.
Yes, sir.
Okay, 85% of our protein in the United States of America right now is processed by and controlled and distributed by 4 multinational corporations that are not housed or founded in the United States. That's a problem. That's a
huge
national
problem.
security issue. And this is what we're going to start talking about. I have many allies, many people that back me, that support me, that basically consult me as far as saying what the words I'm saying. I'm not just saying these words for me. I'm saying it for a big group of people that are tired of the bullshit within our food systems. They're tired of not being able to be the rancher or producer that they once were told that they were going to be. The form of basically regulatory capture and asset reallocation that I've seen in my lifetime is about to get worse, and it's already gone way too far. So vertically integrate yourself out of that system slowly. If you're only just buying butter, if you're only just going to eat hamburger meat, go look at your pantry. Whenever I said earlier, people say buying local's too expensive. Let me see your pantry. I'm going to tell you what's expensive. Let me see your insurance, your health insurance. Let me see your prescriptions. Let me see your checkbook. I'll tell you what's expensive. And whenever you basically adopt a consumption model that's different than what you're doing today, your life's going to get better through this vertical integration of the cattle industry that we've done in the Beef Initiative, micro-processing centers, vertical integration from the soil to the grass, to the cow, to the rancher producer, to the processing center, to distribution, to your fork. That's what we've done in the Beef Initiative.
So let's talk about what people probably don't know, what a micro center is,
Okay.
and how many people can a micro center feed.
Right. Okay.
Because
And
that
it's
sounds-
not a numbers game, which is we got to say, because how we got into this problem, everybody thinks that we scale linear, and that's what we did with our food, right?
Okay.
we took something that was vertically integrated into Canyon, Texas. We're going to use this as an example.
Sure.
Processing center right outside of Texas, right outside of, we had 2 processing centers right outside of Canyon, Texas. Okay, that was vertically integrated because the cows came from ranches right around here.
Okay. Okay.
Cows raised by local ranchers, local cow, local soil, local forage, local inputs, and everything. Didn't have to drive a bunch, didn't use a lot of energy to raise those cattle. Went through a microprocessing center that's basically, they're not impressive buildings, I guarantee you. It's basically just a metal shed that basically honors the cow. The cow has one bad day, that cow becomes food, okay? With doing that, basically that vertical integration of keeping everything local, okay? Then whenever that vertical integration of that food, that protein, those raw materials, those minerals, the soil, the local biome, the local health of that cow was then transferred into the local health of a community in many different ways, from tallow to hides to bones to things you could make locally as far as fertilizer, manure. Everything that cow was, you kept locally.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
That's all done through the processing center, microprocessing
So
center.
the microprocessor can take an entire cow and break it down into the individual parts of being a hide,
Yep.
the wood, the
Everything.
bones going for stock,
Everything.
the meat, the tallow,
Exactly.
the whole
They
thing.
have control of that, right? Okay, that's the
Interesting. Okay.
microprocessing center. Okay. Okay, that's, let's say our processing here about 30 beeves a week here in Canyon.
So that's 30 cows.
That's 30 cows a week.
All right.
Feeding people. You see the storefront, feeding plenty of people. Everybody has access to local food.
And there's sorry to cut you off, but there's a beautiful color to your beef.
Exactly.
There's this rich density of the red in the beef. And I don't know why, but to me, it looks healthy.
It is healthy.
It looks good to me.
Well, these cows don't have antibiotics because we're not into the basically the multinational system. No antibiotics, no mRNA, no vaccines, grass-fed, grass-finished, grass-fed, organic, natural, grain-finished, not GMO, grain-finished, that we have control of the seeds, we have control of the soil, we have control of the water table, we have control of everything that those cows basically have as inputs.
Okay.
That's why the beef is healthy. But then you have the multinational system. Let's say the same ranchers, same cows, right here in Canyon, Texas, right around here. What changed? Well, take away that processing center. Okay. Where are these ranchers going to take all their beefs? Well, there's only one place to process. That's the multinational system. Okay, that's in Hereford, Texas. Got JBS, you got Tyson, you got Cargill, you got National. Okay.
And none of them are in the States.
They're not corporate headquartered in the United States of America. No.
That's just insane to
It
me.
is insane.
That
and
doesn't
nobody
make
knows
any
this.
sense.
Yeah. But these processing centers, you're killing 5,000 head a day, 10,000 head a day in one building.
Is that where the cattle auction thing comes into play? Is where
Yeah.
ranchers will take it to an auction and
Yeah, you have your auction houses. You used to, Amarillo, Texas had the best auction house in the United States at one point in time in the United States, and it was one of the best pivot points for beef in the nation. And so once this scaled up to the size that it is, that producer that raised the same cow that could have been processed in the microprocessing center, he doesn't have that. He has to schedule a date a year and a half down the line for that one calf that he has to steward for a year and a half. He's not raising that cow the way he would raise a cow if he had access to that microprocessing center. He's raising that cow so he knows he has to hit that date to take it to that kill date.
right.
If he loses that kill date, boom.
There goes all his money.
So he really doesn't even want to take it to market anymore himself. He's going to raise that cow-calf operation. He's going to take that cow at the auction house. Who's controlling the auction house? Well, all that money is basically controlled by the four multinational systems. So they're selling their cow into the multinational system because they pretty much don't have a choice. They don't have access to the microprocessing center. So once it leaves his hands and his ownership through the auction house and goes into the multinational system, new vaccines, new antibiotics, feed yards that are just packed to the gill, Feed yards aren't bad. We've had feed yards forever. It's what type of feed yards.
Okay.
And right now, I'm in a bad position, or a difficult position per se, because I'm here in the belly of the beast of the commodity commercial cattle system. Okay. You get a lot of division in the cattle industry, and you're like, thinking that we're going against commodity cattle, commodity cowboy. It's not what I'm up against. I'm supporting and fighting for every rancher across the United States to have a different way to take their beef to market. And this is what the education of the consumer needs to understand. It's what the education of the modern day rancher needs to understand too, is that there's a way to take your beef to market now that we didn't have access to just 4 short years ago,
Right.
in a way that we've done through the Beef Initiative. And so by doing that, you're profiting more off that cow. You're raising that cow to be healthy, and you decide when you want to take it to market through that microprocessing center, not the multinationals.
Which gives the rancher back control. And if you want to be a commodity rancher, you still could be, but that commodity could be just distributed through a bunch of micro centers instead of just
Yeah.
A massive center.
And that's what I kind of tell locally here. It's like, I don't want your herd. I'm not going to compete against the multinational system. Think about that.
Okay.
That's huge. Okay. We're not going to compete against that. This is not going to happen for everybody, because a lot of people don't care. They will eat dog shit because it tastes good. They'll eat Taco Bell, and that's what they're going to do. So,
by the way, it's not Mexican food in any way, shape,
No,
or
it's
form.
not.
Real Mexican food is delicious cuisine that has been
Exactly.
cultivated for thousands of years
yes.
of a culture that has some of the best cuisine you will ever
By
have.
far.
But it is not Taco Bell.
No.
So please stop it.
Exactly, but they're not, see, because that's that chemical engineering. So, anyways, to compete with the multinationals, they're unlimited amount of cash flow,
Yeah.
lobbying power, regulatory capture, everything that happens to keep the independent registered producer down, they have something to do with it. They act like they don't, but they do. I'm sorry. And there's so many good people that work for these multinational corporations. It's very touchy. They got to make a living. They got to do everything. But let's go back. All right.
And some of them even inherited the multinational
Yeah.
from a parent that passed away or a
Exactly.
grandparent, because this is multi-generationally be going on. Tyson Foods didn't start last week. They started about 50 or 100 years ago doing this.
Well, yeah, and they started out a very good poultry company. But guess what now? Who owns Tyson?
From what I remember, McDonald's owned Tyson, didn't they? Because they were
No.
like the largest buyer of Tyson chicken and all that stuff.
No, Tyson basically started out, and they started aggregating poultry in a different way. And then they got bought out, and they got pretty
Okay.
big. And then Smithville, Smithville owns Tyson.
Never
That's
even heard
big.
of them.
Exactly. And then who owns Smithville? CCP of China.
Oh,
Okay.
shit.
Yeah, 100%. So most of our pork in the United States, a good majority of our pork now is controlled by China and being basically raised by China, being shipped into the United States from China. Tyson just this last year, 8 months, they've closed 6 processing plants down, but we're importing more pork.
'Cause
Why
it's
is that
cheaper to do
happening?
it over there.
Of course.
Much cheaper.
Yes.
And
And
China's the largest producer of pork.
Exactly. And now they control our food system. So you want to talk about wars? Let's just turn off the supply. People
Right.
people aren't thinking right.
It's not going to happen, Slim. Come on,
But
we're all
They will think
rational
because we
humans
have a
here.
vertical integration away from the linear scalable system. Okay, now you independent or you commodity cattle rancher in the Texas Panhandle, give us 1% of your herd, 2% of your herd. We're your other bid. We're feeding our community first. You want to be a part of that. That's how we're going to take care of feeding small town America. Okay, now we're going to feed small town America with microprocessing centers like Texas once did. Texas once fed a nation after the Civil War of the United States. We had millions of cattle that were roaming free because of the Civil War. We came back to Texas, and Texas was still fighting the Comanches too. We fought them all the way up to 1875. Around 1870, before 1875, we'd already done the cattle drive way back when. But in around 1875, there was a nation that was hungry, and Texas started feeding forts, and they started feeding the military. and we created the Chisholm Trail. We could create the Goodnight Trail, which is right here. Charles Goodnight. Charles Goodnight saved the bison. He was one of the first person that ever saved the bison from being extinct. He's the guy that created the chuck wagon. He was a scout for the Texas Rangers.
What's a chuck wagon? I'm not familiar with that
It's
term.
what goes on a cattle drive, and it used to feed all the cowboys. It would
Okay.
go ahead, and then he would basically cook. You know, he was the cook, and he stored all of the flour. He stored, what they needed for that long 2,000 miles from, as Lonesome Dove from Texas, Lonesome Dove all the way to Montana. So usually you would go from, down south Texas. Your cattle drive would go up to Colorado, it'd go up to Kansas City, it'd go up to Dodge City, Kansas, Abilene, stuff like that. And then when the railroad came, then we really fed a nation because everybody drive cattle to Amarillo, Texas, or Fort Worth. And then we ship beef to Chicago. Why do you have great Chicago steakhouses? That beef originally came from Texas.
Oh, interesting.
New York. Most of that steak in the very beginning of basically people falling in love with beef in the United States, that beef came from Texas. And it came through rail lines. First came from cattle drive, then in the rail lines.
And was it already processed beef going in the rail lines, or was it
Sometimes,
actual head of cattle that was just going?
At first it was live cattle, then we got into, harvesting, and then we got into refrigeration.
Right.
And aging.
I guess as we figured out
It was
refrigeration and we can
exactly.
transport, it was
Right.
much better.
So Texas basically created the cattle day of days old. And what I tell everybody now is that we're in a new modern day cattle drives. And this is what we're accomplishing because we're not going to ship our beef. We're still going to ship our beef overseas because that's what's happening right now. Right now, we're a net importer of beef in the United States of America. Where's all our cattle going?
It doesn't make sense
It's
because
going
we
on
have
the
so
global
much.
market to the highest bidders. So all of our USDA prime beef that everybody thinks that they get,
Yeah.
we really don't have access to our prime beef anymore because they're profiteering at the multinationals. They are the
So
ones
who's
that are
buying it?
China,
China's
For
taking
one.
our best beef.
of course. Yes, and now it's the highest bidder. It's a global market.
Which I can understand. China's not a large country. It just has a ton of people comparatively to the United States.
It can't feed its people right now. Seriously, it can't. I've been to Asia. There's a global food war. We have 400 million refugees that's going to flock across this planet over the next 5 years. There's countries that can't feed themselves right now.
So is
They're-
China one of those?
That they can't feed themselves. No, domestically they cannot feed their population.
They need to.
Yes, they need to import.
Well, see, China has the unique advantage of having such a strong economy that they can continue to do that.
But their economy is not as good as people think here in the United States. It's a false. See, this is the part of the monetary war.
It's
They're
like comparing
suffering,
it
but-
to like a Peru or something.
Of course, yeah.
They're
have
strong enough to come out on the other side of it right now.
100%, and they're in the commodity cattle industry, both here domestically and in their own country. So cattle ranching has changed, and we have to wake up to that. The only reason that is happening is because of our consumer demand. Most beef in the United States that is consumed, 80% of it is burger. Okay.
Yeah, I would think so.
But we've got studies, Texas multinational processing plant, that they did a study on 1 pound of ground beef, and it had 92 different genetics from 92 different cows in 1 pound of ground beef.
So we're just mass processing them.
Yeah, and
We're just throwing them into a blender and going, all right,
and
well,
we don't
this
even
is
know
food.
where it's from. Go to the grocery store, find out which country your beef is from. It doesn't tell you. It'll say property of the USA. That just means that beef was taken ownership by the United States government when it came through the borders. We don't have a country of origin labeling on our beef, and we never will.
It's the finagling of words that people
I know.
don't understand and
Yeah.
don't really want to put in. That's what I was saying. Is like grass-fed, grass-finished. Well, hell, grass-finished was not a term that existed on food in a supermarket until a couple of years
You
ago.
go ask that in Asia, they go, what?
What else are they supposed to eat?
They're like, organic? Everything's organic. What are you talking about?
My country, Armenia,
Mhm.
as small as it is, yeah, that's the way things are. It's like,
Yeah.
what do you mean organic versus non-organic? They're like cow, grass, organic, done.
See, that's what this pause gives people. Go figure this out.
I come from a third world country,
Right.
boys and girls. We don't
Yeah.
have that. Like, our GDP is probably Iowa or Montana, which is not a large GDP by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not talking about
Exactly.
California or Texas, which have some of the largest in the world.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like small, parts of this country are the entire GDP of the country that I came from.
Right.
But that country still is able to maintain for a good percentage fresh produce, fresh vegetables, fresh poultry, fish, beef, pork. Now, we do have all the Skittles and M&Ms and all the other crap that you could think of because, again, it's just another consumer country. But everyday food that mom and dad buy
Yeah.
and cook,
Yeah.
it doesn't usually come from a bad source. It just comes from the farmers in our country that farm the land and
Yeah.
sell. Like you can go to the humongous open air markets every day in the capital city and buy, the grandma sitting there because
Exactly.
she grew it. She
Just
literally,
like Thailand. Just
she
like
brought
what
it
you
from,
s-
yeah.
Yeah.
And
We used to do this here.
the whole thing of farm to table, it's an only American thing, I swear.
It is.
Like in my country where I came from, if you said farm to table, they'd be like, what else is it supposed to be? Where else do you want it to come from?
And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Who controls distribution?
Yes.
Think about that.
Well, I mean, those are completely separate entities in and of themselves that are very shadowy and nobody really understands them.
They
And
keep it that way.
And they have these built-in relationships with certain places and people, and the entire trucking industry is behest to them. So is the train industry.
Yeah.
And if you look at that too, it was frightening that I found out that there's like only 2 or 3 major train companies left in the world,
Yeah.
and they control all of it.
Yep.
And you're like, wait, what? What do you mean? What happened to competitiveness? What happened to, being
Well, that's
multidisciplinary and having a bunch of different companies trying to innovate and doing stuff in just these static industries?
yeah.
We lost all of this.
We did.
We gave it all up for convenience. And we have tragedies that come up and we just brush it off like everything else. We're like, oh, okay, it happened.
Let's talk about a tragedy right now. Just 5 weeks ago, we had the biggest wildfire in Texas.
Yes, and it's
In
kind of
history.
where we started our conversation originally
it's-
on the phone.
Right over my shoulders where that wildfire happened, right? And 1.2 million almost acres burnt up. And we have a nation that doesn't even know it happened.
And it's just, if you actually understood what 2 million acres looks like,
1.2, but yes,
oh,
it's
I'm
a
sorry,
lot.
1.2 million
That's-
acres
That's
looks like.
huge. Yes.
It's such a massive, massive amount of land that is scorched for a very long time because that burning goes all very deep into the ground too.
It
if I'm not
does.
mistaken.
Everybody's like, "Oh, it'll come back," but no, it does deplete because the soil is what the soil is today in 2024. But also, we're going through, droughts. We're going through so much that people really don't know how to identify. But let's talk about all the ranchers that don't have herds now. Let's talk about all the livestock that was lost. Let's talk about all the fencing. Let's talk about the lack of basically herd production. Let's talk about our national inventory of cattle. Let's talk about the impacts of things that are on down the line.
So let's talk about it. How much cattle? Is there even an estimate of what we lost as far as livestock in the fire?
You know what? I've heard 7,000 all the way to 97,000. And it's hard to really pinpoint because we still, this last week, had a rancher put down 72 pregnant moms. And so that's how, that's
What was
that's
the cause of that? The
well,
fire? again?
injury. Yeah, injury.
injured.
Yeah, injury. And you have orphan calves, okay? Calves that don't have moms. Now they're having to be taken care of by the moms. Now we're in calving season. So now there's calves dropping, but, you're having basically, premature, calves dropping.
Because of the fires and
Because
the
of the
stress,
fires,
smoke
stress,
inhalation, and all
yes.
this other stuff. Okay.
And so the impact of this is going to be far reaching. And it's we're so connected, but we're so disconnected, right? And how is it that a nation just is able to forget, well, we had the Maryland Bridge, there's another disaster, there's another disaster, there's more dopamine, there's
There was-
more fear.
East Palestine a few months before that, the train wreck
Yeah.
that just caused so much damage there, and that got Flint, Michigan a couple of years before that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like every single day it seems like another tragedy or another buzz event comes up to make us completely forget about what Texas
100%.
kept burning and nobody was talking about.
None. And that's centralized media control. But I talked to a rancher, 37 miles of fence
Gone.
gone. And what do they have to wait on? Government.
Well, that's hundreds of thousands
Government.
of dollars potentially for
Government.
refence.
Yeah, and that fence should already be going up. You see, and this is what the cattle industry should be empowered to be able to do, is come to its own rescue. But you have a system now that basically is a bureaucratic mess as far as relief efforts, as far as having actual value of land and actual value in the cow. Where's the value of the cow now? Nobody knows.
Right.
I do. It's in the USDA insurance policy. It's not in the flesh of the cow. It's
What
not
does
in the
that mean?
meat. It means that the cow's been leveraged into nothing more than a debt. Think about that. Okay. Cattle
So
get
it gets
lost.
packaged and sold like a commodity would on the stock exchange
Yes.
because it's an insurance commodity, I guess.
Well, insurance policy, United States government, it's like you as a cattle rancher, the most important thing that you would be able to do in your life that you have control over, the value of the cow used to be in the cow itself.
Okay.
And then the value of the cow was kind of switched over. It kind of teamed up with the land itself. Okay. So we did open range grazing in the very beginning. You could go out there and find cows everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Well, then we got barbed wire, and then we got fencing. So it's like, well, shit, land's very valuable now because now we can compartmentalize the land. So you got big ranches. Well, the value of that cow is now I'm keeping this land and I'm keeping those cows on that land.
Okay.
That's going to be able to get me more cows because I can use the land as leverage. So now the value of the cow is mining the land a little bit. Land's good though. We're not making any more of it. Okay. So we had the value of the cow and the cow, value of the cow and the land. Okay. Now where are we? Well, land doesn't have value for cattle ranching. That's a bad use of that land.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So where is the value of the cow? Well, the cow basically makes money by what? Consuming what? Multinational grains.
Candidate.
Okay, all the inputs. That's value. That's the value. That's the value. All the antibiotics, all the pharmaceuticals, all the multinational chemical and grains that cow has to basically, to keep it to survive and everything.
Now there's a dollar you can attach to it because it has to ingest X amount of that product or
Right.
products
And
chemically.
then that rancher, if he doesn't use this input system of the multinational system, he carries that cow all the way to that auction house. And just a year ago, that profit off that cow, after he's carried that cow for a year and a half, $400 to $600. Do you think that's value? No.
No.
Where's the value? Where is that hedge? It's
How
in the
long is it
USDA.
carrying it, a cow? What's the average?
It
carry?
depends on the genetics, depends on the forage, it depends on the inputs. But a good year, 18 months. Let's just say a good 18 months. A lot of times you can go a full year. Depends on if it's a beef cattle, if it's a certain type. It's across the board. Let's say from right now, from 10 to 18 months is a good window of time.
So I'd say average about a year
A little over a year.
or a little over, let's say 14 months is
Yeah.
the average. That's not a small amount of time to have
What happens when you
money
have
being held
yeah.
up is the only way you can think about it. It's
Right.
an investment that may or
What
may not
happens
pay
in
off.
that year? Price of gas, diesel goes from $2.75 a gallon
$7
to
or something.
$7.
Crazy number.
Okay, what about fertilizer? Boom. What about grain prices? Boom. You bought this cow at a certain price, and then you got all this inflationary bullshit that builds in on the inputs. Well, now you have no value of the cow.
And your profit margin just keeps
But
dwindling
you
and
have a
dwindling.
USDA insurance policy. If you took out that USDA insurance policy in the beginning, then you're probably going to be covered. You're going to be able to work another day. Okay? All right. So where's the value of the cow now?
The insurance policy.
There's no
So-
profit here. There's no value. There's no store of value left for the cattle rancher. The store of value used to be in the cow, or the store of value is in the land.
So is the insurance policy also a guarantee of price, I guess?
Not really guarantee a price. It's a guarantee that you're not losing your ass if you play the game right.
Okay.
Right? Think about it. Crop insurance, how they play that game. We've got in the United States of America, you got crop insurance, and there's guys that get insurance off of failed crops, and a lot of times they don't even have to have a crop. They're going to survive because they have a USDA insurance policy. The incentives are off, right? And so who's controlling those incentives? Who is making that to where you are hedged so much the USDA insurance policy is the only way that you survive as a cattle rancher in the United States of America? That's part of a broken money system. It's part of a food system that is the incentives are wrong for the people that are producing the food, and they're not profiting. If we had an incentive-based structure for our food industry like we used to, okay, our health would be totally different. We would honor our farmers and ranchers, producers, and we would make sure that we protected them because they're the ones that are feeding our children.
Yeah, but there's no money in it, is what the way they're looking at it as.
But there used to be money in it.
There used to be, but they
There
saw
used to
that
be
there's so
money
much
in cattle
more
ranching.
money.
There used to be money in farming. There used to be, you could really have, pillars of society that were respected and they were honored with monetary value.
Oh no! Now I guess the way I look at it based on what you told me is that the way they look at it is, how do I get the product, which is us, to consume more of my diversified portfolio?
Yeah.
One of the portfolios that is diversified is the pharmaceutical industry.
Right.
So how do I keep driving that product into a new division? Well, I get them 6 somewhere along the line, and then I introduce that new division of products and say, hey, look at this. There's an entire plethora of bullshit that you don't need that's going to keep you consuming the first product that I gave you in conjunction with this one. And then at some point you will die. And I have a sneaking suspicion that these assholes probably sell you the coffin at the end of the day too.
I'm sure they do. If BlackRock does,
Yeah,
at least.
or they'll, cultivate the oak wood that you're going to be in. Somewhere, I feel like they have a closed loop of beginning to death, they're going to make money from you. Because remember, when you're born and all of those inoculation shots and all of those vaccines until the age of 2, well, you're not their target product yet because mom's breast milk can keep you sustained for a good amount of time.
But now what are they doing to women? Making them think that the breast milk was bad for babies.
Formula.
Yes.
And we never understood that crap. And neither did any of our pediatricians or gynecologists for my wife, OBGYNs. They were all like, yeah, super important the first 2 weeks. Please give breast milk if you can. It really makes a monumental difference for the rest of the child's life.
Of
They're
course
like,
it
you don't
does.
understand how big of a difference it'll
Building
make.
blocks.
They're like, he gets everything from you and he gets the best version of it ever produced. And you're like, okay, you drove it in enough that we will do exactly as you say on this. But you could have easily gone to a different OBGYN or pediatrician that said, look, the numbers are in.
Yeah.
You want that Pedialyte in your life or whatever the brand name is, because they've got the best of the best for your baby's mental health development and and a lot of people will believe that bullshit.
Yeah. Of course they will.
Well, it's a convenience thing. I don't have to pump. Well, not
Well,
me.
they're stuck in the
woman doesn't have to
application
pump
layer.
and doesn't have to have this and doesn't have to label and refrigerate and know what's going on. And I'm like, it's just a couple of steps.
Yeah.
We can all pitch in and help mom with the baby while she needs to pump or she needs to put a label and a date on her breast milk and put it into the refrigerator. And I'm sorry if anybody feels uncomfortable about this, but this is kind of how all of us came to be.
Yes. This is where we came from.
Yeah, it's just nature follows a cycle, and all mammals drink from their mother's breast.
Yes.
It's one of those things.
Well, once
We're
again,
not special in any way, boys and
no,
girls.
and we're not special at all. But what we got here because of a certain reason and a certain pattern of behavior that we're not exhibiting right now as a general society. And
it's
this is
we're
what,
in an upside down world.
of course we are.
Where synthetics are better for you than the natural derivative. And I don't understand how that works because, and that's the other secret of the pharmaceutical industry that's kind of coming out now, is all medications seem to be a derivative of a natural substance that exists.
Of course they are.
All of them.
You want to get, okay, we could do this for weeks, but just go back for the Rockefeller and see what they erased out of our medicinal system from the 1850s on up. There's so many stories going back to Procter & Gamble, they're going back to the Rock. There's so many people that have controlled basically our market access to things that we had access to at one point in time. And you look at Bayer, what is aspirin? Aspirin came from trees. I mean, so every medicine that is used now is this synthetic version of the natural, basically, remedy that it used to be. You can go into the Appalachians of the United States of America and look at the medicinal history that was erased out of the Appalachians that had been there for thousands of years. Let's look at the indigenous people. Let's look at the Comanches. Let's look how they lived here. And there's so much that we don't know right now in these modern times because we are in a form of digital slavery that is controlling our lack of access to ourselves through a lack of access to truth.
That's the unfortunate part is because we have these devices in our pockets, we think we have the truth.
Yeah.
But we have really the opposite of what truth really is, because in its purest form, truth should give you information and then also allow you to formulate your own thoughts.
Sure.
Same thing, falsity should do the exact same thing. But neither of them are what is being fed to us. Narratives and opinions are what we're getting more of nowadays. So you don't even know what you're hearing is truth or falsity because you're getting a narrative.
Do you know
There's
what
a
they did
beautiful
during?
story behind it.
You know what they did during the Cultural Revolution? They took logic out of everything. And you
Yeah.
know who they started with? Mostly the
What was it?
children.
Children?
Yes.
Yeah.
Studied the Cultural Revolution. What they did is they basically started making the children dress the same. They took
Uniforms.
they took gender out, and then they took personality out. They took knowing thyself out, and then they put basically the division of the family, and then they went on to educate, indoctrinate the children to go against their parents
Yeah,
and to assassinate their parents in certain things. I saw the pictures there in northern Thailand by the Golden Triangle. I saw the effects of cultural, basically maneuvering of society. And it's the most dangerous thing that we're up against now. It's not freaking Russia and America going at war with each other. We're already at war.
We've never been at war with each other. That's
No.
the other thing that pisses
Right.
me off so much about this narrative of Russia is our biggest enemy. I keep asking the exact same thing and I can't get an answer to it. How many times have we actually fought against each other? Because I could think of multiple times we fought together against a common enemy.
Yeah.
World War II comes to mind. World War I comes to mind. Afghanistan, we both of us have tried our luck and failed in Afghanistan and in other for various parts of the world. But I'm like, we literally have never actually hurt one another in a physical sense, and we've never actually been enemies. We've been something akin to frenemies,
Sure.
where both of us can pretend to hate each other because it's mutually beneficial to us, because we're the two largest. Now China has emerged as a third large player, but honestly, like if you met the Russian people and actually had some time spent with them, you'd be like, oh, these guys are bros. We can go have beers together all the time because they
Yeah.
have the same type of mentality as we do. And why we have this stupid disconnect, I don't understand why we're supposed to hate these people that truly, really don't really
called
done
power.
much of anything to us ever.
It's power. I know quite a few Russians. I know people that have left Russia because of the Ukraine war.
Yeah.
And they say the same thing as you and I are saying. There is no division. It's something that is propagated. It's called programming. And that's what we are, is programmed.
And it feels like it's a one-way programming because when you talk
course
to the
it
Russian
is.
people, they don't hate us.
No.
They're like, what are you talking about? Your music's awesome. You got some good food. You dress cool. Well, I don't understand why I'm supposed to
No.
hate you. I can hate
They don't-
parts of your government for stupid things, but you also hate those parts of your government for those stupid things.
Exactly.
And you're welcome to hate a lot of what my government does because my government doesn't represent me. And it's the same thing for the Russian people. They're like, this is what we got to deal with. You got your thing to deal with, but that's not us on a like an actual human level. We all like the same stuff usually.
Well, you get on YouTube, man. I talk to people all over the world through YouTube. There's so many people out there that are not basically participating, and they're starting to uncover. The prohibition on the internet will happen. It's different networks. Whenever you're in Asia, it's a different network.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't understand this, and so they're looking at different things than we're looking at. So each country is programming in certain ways, but also a lot of people are coming together through the mutual networks that we do share. And so you can't fight truth. One thing, truth always wins. The problem with truth that people don't know how to deal with is it's a timing issue. Sometimes truth does not prevail in the time allotted of your life sometimes,
Right.
or of your lack of patience, because this is the only reason we're here is because of truth. That's it.
And I think a lot of times it's easier to deny the truth.
Well, it is. We've made it very easy to deny truth because there's no accountability anymore. We don't have that integrity of truth anymore. And one thing that I was taught very firmly in this community is integrity and
Yes.
and authenticity, and to look a man in the eye and go shake his hand when I was a little boy. You know, that's what I learned.
I teach that to my children now.
Right.
You hold the door for a lady.
Yes.
You hold the door for elderly people. You shake a man's hand and
Yep.
you say hello. When guests come over, you get off your butt. You go to the door and you say hello. How are you? Shake their hand. And then in that moment, you go to your room.
Yep.
Because that is not where you're supposed to be when the adults are. If it's mom and dad at home, hang out, do whatever the hell
Right.
you want. Nobody cares. But if we have guests over,
Right.
the respectful thing for you to do is say hello. If they brought a child with them, grab that child and go into a bedroom
Love
and
it.
hang out,
Right.
because that is proper. And you
Yes.
better hold the door open. And I've been given dirty looks in public when I've gotten mad at my children for not holding a door for their mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I've gotten very angry at times and said, that is by far the most important person for your life. She will love you in a way that no one will ever love you ever again. You better respect that, and you better hold a door for your mom every single time she's going somewhere. It's fine if at some point you forget me. I get it. I'm a man too. I understand what that is like. But your mother is, and for me in my culture, it's very much so ingrained in us that your mother is adjacent to holiness.
Right.
You respect your mom the same way you would respect a holy figure, because without her, there is no life.
There you go.
We don't give life. Women only give life, and you should have that respect for them. We live in this three-ring circus that we started to question womanhood and all of the things that
What
come
life
with it,
is
and what life
yes.
is, and all this. And it's not for me. It never will be for me. And my children are not going to learn that
No,
stupidity. A woman is a woman, damn it, and you respect a woman.
Exactly. And that's what you get with basically, you know, that's what's so fascinating about what we've engineered with the Beef Initiative is that type of awareness that comes by creating a different food supply for your family.
Yeah.
Because it's based on respect instead of labels, instead of price points, instead of flashy programming and advertising and marketing, and instead of stupid incentives, instead of convenience. And once people realize this, I have not ever told anybody, said, screw that, man. I'm going straight back to the supermarket. I'm going to aisle 9 with all that rapeseed and canola. Not one person that has come to me that I've talked to thousands of people, not one person has said, I made a mistake. I went and shook a rancher's hand.
Right. That's
Not one person.
No.
Think about what I just said. Not one person has ever said that was a mistake. What I hear is that I ventured back into that and I was a dumbass for doing it because I felt bad. I didn't feel the same. It wasn't as rewarding. It wasn't as empowering. It
Right.
didn't taste as good. It was just not real food. And once you get away from that highly processed stuff that we call food, you realize that your taste buds are nothing but basically engineered in a way that you're not really aware of it right now. Because you have a chemical engineering of your taste buds that once you start eating more basically food, local, that's grown the correct way without all these chemical inputs and pharmaceutical inputs, you understand that real food tastes different than what they're serving up at Chick-fil-A, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, or just the supermarket, or even that lasagna that says organic.
Right.
So,
And I think that, once you figure out some of those things, you will also have to understand one fundamental thing. You have a chemical dependency that you were unaware of for your entire life. And just like being addicted to cigarettes, alcohol, heroin, whatever it is, this is 10 times harder to get off of. So don't feel bad if you make, if you fall short one night and you do get that Taco Bell. That's okay.
not at all, man. That's
okay.
Perspective. Once again, perspective.
You just need to have the wherewithal to understand that I made a grave mistake, or I had an indulgent moment, which is fine. You know what? You can have those indulgent moments. Have that big piece of chocolate cake once a month or whatever it is. But it shouldn't be the regular.
Yeah. And
It shouldn't be the regular. If you can
it
get to
can't
that
be.
point, then
Yeah.
you beat the system. You've done so much better than 99% of your fellow humans.
And that's one thing that we always, and we've engineered, especially in the younger generation, try it once. Oh, I'm a failure. I suck.
Right.
And that's it. Give up. Nah, that's not for me. No. This is a continual grind. It's a continual discovery. It's a continual, basically, engineering of, a different behavior. Most addiction, people don't understand. What is addiction? Addiction is a behavioral issue.
It is, because there's a great percentage of this country and the world that can take alcohol, let's say, as the predominant one that's all over the world, have drinks but never become an alcoholic.
Sure.
It never becomes, I need to drink until I'm blackout drunk, or most of us do that in their late teens, early 20s, and you learn from those stupid experiences of, oh God, I don't want to do that ever again.
Right.
But there's a small subset of the culture that gets addicted to it and turns it into their life revolves around that alcohol. And
well, a lot of
that's a
reasons.
behavior, you're
Yeah,
right.
it is. It's a behavioral issue. Usually, why are you consuming that alcohol? Well, it's a behavior. Well, I'm behaving this way because I'm covering up pain.
It's an escapist move.
It is.
It's escape the reality that is
It's
your
an
life.
escapism. That's behavior.
Yes.
Whenever you're willing to look at yourself in the mirror and have that accountability, your behavior changes in a way to an alcoholic, drug addict, somebody that's suffering from obesity, a bad consumption model. It's not a judgment. We're all suffering from it. And that's what I always have to tell people. Like whenever I do, speaking engagements, this is not a judgment. This is an observation, folks. I'm not telling you how to live your life. I'm telling you what I've seen, what I've observed, and what I know what the results are.
Right.
So take that for what you will. I'm not telling you what to do. Nobody can tell anybody what to do. But what you can do is you can listen to people that have gone out there and engineered a different form of lifestyle. And that lifestyle is not as hard as it is. It's taking a pause and it's going back to where we came from and understanding what we lost and why we are in this situation right now. Get to the source of the seed of who you are and why you desire what you desire. And I guarantee you your life changes. This is from ranchers to producers to consumers to anybody. And this is a time. This is a pivotal switch in our society right now. One of the most empowering things you can do is be able to feed your family, your children, and yourself in a way that you feel good about. Not depressed because you just spent $400 at Walmart. Go out and buy $400 worth of beef. Go buy $400 worth at Walmart. Tell me how you feel. Go eat beef for 1 month. I dare you. That's all. I eat eggs. I eat butter. I eat sourdough bread. I eat beef. I eat whatever I want because I have that foundation of consumption of those staples.
Right.
I can eat my vegetables. We got them right here. We cook right here in the rancher storefront. And I don't eat that much. I don't need snacks. Children don't need snacks. They need basically a highly dense protein. And we're not giving it to our children, and we're not giving it to our own brains.
I am.
Yeah.
My kids eat steak all the time, and they eat eggs all the time.
There you go.
And they eat organic. Well, not organic.
You have
I don't even want to use the
results.
word organic, but I
Natural.
buy butter that's
Natural.
locally produced.
Natural is the best way to start using this because they're going to go after organic. They've already taken GMO out of things, and this is what they're going to start doing. They're going to start playing with words again and say, no, this is beyond organic is the new one that's coming. And then they're going to say, oh, this and this. It's just natural.
Am I the only one that feels like Whole Foods is the biggest lie we've ever
It
been
is
told?
the biggest lie.
I
It started out
genuinely
good 'cause
hate
I was
that
in
store
Austin.
so much.
Yeah.
The original Whole Foods.
What's great?
I've been
Ninth and
to
Lamar.
I've been to real Whole Foods before Amazon took it over, and whatever I found in Whole Foods, I didn't find in other stores. That was period, end of statement. Now, whatever I see in Whole Foods, I see everywhere else too.
Yeah.
How are you better? You're not. You're just another big box.
False entitlement. It's so many things that happen. Okay, Amazon, Bezos bought Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Whole Foods is, we call it whole paycheck, right?
Oh, God, yeah.
And he bought Whole Foods for distribution is what he did. Bezos just went in and invested $1 billion in fake cultured meat from stem cells. See, that's a
That's
food
the other
shift.
thing that's pissing me off right now. The whole movement into lab-grown food.
Fake commodities.
What is going on? Why are we doing this?
Got to create and make food highly profitable at all times. They're in this to win it. Okay.
Don't they have
What
enough
happened-
money? I don't get it.
No,
Like,
they don't.
it's
It's about control and power. Think about all the fake commodities that they started in engineering into our food system: the canola oils, the seed oils, all the,
The high-
different sugars,
the corn
everything.
fruits,
all the fake stuff that they
yeah.
create. Those are fake commodities that they make hundreds of
Oh, hell,
millions.
even the wheat that we get flour from is not just normally grown wheat. It's genetically modified, and it's got all these
Sure.
pesticides on it and all this other stuff that
Yeah.
makes it so bad for you.
Glyphosate is in the
Yes.
embryos of, it's just, it's disgusting. And that's why they're doing this, is because they're trying to take the land and the animal out of our consumption model, and they're trying to put it into a warehouse from day one. And they're going to have successes, because whenever you look at Bezos and fake meat, it's not that they're going to go out there and you're going to go to a fake meat steakhouse and everybody's, yes, but you have bug proteins that are now going to be used as fake commodities. You have cultured meat proteins that are going to be used as commodities. You have new GMO bioengineer plant proteins that they're going to engineer. And what used to have beef in it, animal protein in it, is now going to have so many different forms of fake commodities that they get to see. Remember, I told you they're going to redefine what protein is.
Right.
Okay, so everywhere you go, 24 grams of protein, 14
It doesn't tell
grams.
you what protein
doesn't
it is
tell you what
until
protein.
you turn it over and it's
So
all soy based.
insert all these new fake commodities. That's why they're doing it. They're inserting new fake commodities into the food system. And in the Western Hemisphere, basically, other countries can't feed their people. So we're going to eat these new fake commodities. We're going to think they taste good, because that's how we judge food in the United States. And so our animal protein becomes even higher value on the global market.
Got it.
Okay. As we're believing the climate change, greenwashing and everything, we're feeding Asia, and then basically they have control of our food systems. We're coming in and we're getting fed fake commodities that are now the new protein packed, and it's saving the planet, and you're a good consumer.
And look, I have no aversion to bugs. I'm a very adventurous
I've
eater.
eaten chapalinas in Mexico. I've
So
eaten
have
bugs
I.
everywhere.
Yeah.
That's not the point. These are bugs that are made in factories.
It's not the same bugs.
Billions of crickets that become dust.
Yeah, it's
and
not
then
the
that
same
becomes your
thing.
pizza pocket and your chicken tendy. That's where this is going.
But yeah, no, it's not the same thing, because I've had street food in Mexico City, and I've had it probably somewhere else, I'm sure. Spain. I was in Spain. I had street food that it's clearly a cricket. Nobody's trying to hide from you that it's a deep fried or baked or whatever it is, or a scorpion. It's delicious, but you also understand what you're consuming and what you're ingesting, and it's not for everyone. But it seems like these cultures have been doing it for a long, long time, and there's yummy in there, but a lot of people don't like it. And I think what they're doing, what you're saying is, well, if we turn it into a fine dust, then we can repackage it as we want. And
Yep.
at some point, they're going to rebrand the name insect into animal, and they're just going to call it animal protein. But they're not going to specify the animal.
No.
And you're just going to be like, well, it's animal protein. It's supposed to be good for you. You're like, yeah, well, where's the source of your animal, dude?
Yeah.
Is it farmed crickets?
Yeah.
I have a feeling they're not going to be the same quality as the ones that are in the jungles.
Nope.
I'm sure of it, because the same cows that are out there that are just grazing grass are way better for you and taste better than those big factory farms that have just like hundreds of thousands of cows that have no room to move, and they're just at a feedlot all day.
Right.
There's a big difference between them.
Well,
a
and it's
disconnect.
it just uncovers so much how we basically facilitate, our animal protein today. If you go to like China, they have these big hog warehouses,
Okay.
5 stories high. And it's just hog. All the excrement is getting dropped down into ponds. What's in the ponds? Okay, catfish, certain types of fish. The
That are
fish
eating
are
it.
feeding off of the hog waste. You go to Market Street here in Amarillo, Texas, and it's United System, and you go and buy catfish. It's a USA product, but it's basically comes from China.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you have catfish that is basically starts in the United States, goes to China, just like those peaches I told you earlier, gets fed excrement from the hogs,
Till
then
they get
get
big.
shipped back to the United States and then sold in the United States. How is that profitable? Well, once again, it's on a one world food group type of basically distribution and aggregation system. And this is what the general public doesn't understand. And how do they hide those facts? They say stuff like product of USA. They say product of natural, organic, grass-fed, everything that they can pull out, they're going to say.
I just feel like if the more labels they put on, the bigger the bullshit is for me.
I tell people, if you got a lot of words on your food, you shouldn't be eating it. And
I mean,
if you're buying it because of a marketing plan, yeah, you probably should check that. Because you don't want labels, you don't need labels. And people say, well, how are you going to know if it's good beef or not? I said, I tell you what, this is how you know if you've got a good deal going on with beef. If you got a cattle rancher bragging about how he raised that cow, you want to buy as much of that cow as you can.
Right.
It's as simple as that. And now we're bringing track and trace, and we're doing transparency into our cattle industry where everybody, it's just so funny, a consumer demand that they know where this cow came from and what it ate its whole life, its temperature whenever it was harvested, and all the inputs. And it's just, that's ridiculous.
And those are virtue signaling morons.
Exactly.
I hate those people that will sit at a restaurant and you'll be adjacent to them and they'll be like, where did the chickpeas come from? Who cares, dude?
Yes.
Like, just enjoy your food and move on. If
Yes.
you decided to come here, how about you put a little bit of trust in the people that are producing and delivering the food for
Exactly.
you? And if you don't, stop it.
Where is that accountability?
Yeah.
Okay, where is it? It needs to be the person that's going to consume it.
Yeah.
And so if you're walking in that restaurant, you better already have validated that's a place you want to be, consuming something from.
Right.
And
It just drives me wild because you're like, dude, you have a waiter standing there. Do you think this 18-year-old kid gives a shit where your food came from and he's not going to lie to you blatantly to your face? He is. Because the more he lies and the more you believe it, the better the tip you're probably going to leave him.
Yeah.
And that's it. And it's just, we need to stop this charade of thinking that everything needs to be explained to death and labeled
Once
so
again,
heavily.
it's a false sense of entitlement.
Yes.
Seriously.
What are you
You
entitled
eating
to?
street food in Thailand?
It's good stuff though, right?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's
I
the
bet it's
best.
so
You're going to
good.
come across people that are not that good, but though, if you know food, hey, that's good. You just know. And that's what we've been separated from. We verify through a false, basically, verification system. That's through labeling. That's through, USDA. That's through FDA. It's through all these, 3-letter, 4-letter agencies that basically do nothing but regulate. And, they have control and they create, EPA. They use so many tricks and tactics to really just cover up the deceptions. And there's a lot of people that have a lot of good intentions with clean water, let's say.
Right.
But it's been taken too far. It's basically a weapon now. A lot of things have been weaponized in our food system that keeps us separated from knowing what real food is. The over-sanitation of our society when it comes to food is really gone too far. You don't need eggs in your damn refrigerator. They can sit out. When
Can
you
they
go,
really?
Oh, yes, you can go anywhere. Well, it depends on the eggs you're getting, but
Right, that's the other
natural
thing, right?
eggs, you don't have to refrigerate eggs. You don't have to refrigerate butter. You don't have to refrigerate a lot of things. But what we did is we basically created this form of food safety that has gone way too far. And, how they've gone into milk. We're talking about milk and raw milk. All the raw, basically, minerals and vitamins that are sucked out of raw milk and then sold on the commodity market as something that should have stayed in that milk, that should have gone to your child's, basically, development. Now you have pasteurized milk, and the milk industry is so captured now that independent ranchers or independent dairy producers, it's impossible to survive because of the regulations, because of, stupid agencies like the EPA, the FDA, what they're doing to dairy cattle right now with this new H5N1 virus that they're saying is a avian flu that has been basically, it's jumped from poultry into cattle, dairy cattle, and now they're saying it's going to come into humans. So there's so much that's going on right now within the the over sanitization of our food systems, because you think about it, they just culled 1.8 million chickens yesterday in Texas 2 days ago because of this flu thing. Okay. Once again, if that's the system that they're operating in, that you basically have 1.8 million chickens under one place, I don't part of that system. That's a congested system. You're going to get disease in that system.
That system's going to fail.
It's going to fail. And you get these feed yards with cattle. Why do they have to shoot them up so much? Shit, you got cattle sitting there for 30 days that are, nut to butt, man. You're going to have basically diseases. And this is what people don't understand. The factory system that we've basically produced in the United States of America is out here in the middle of nowhere that nobody gets to see. Well, I see it. I'm right here. I was born into it. I know every bit of it, and it needs to change. It's not sustainable. And the health of this nation and the health of my child is far more important than the way that we basically are doing things today. And I choose not to be part of that system. And it's not 100% at all times, but if I'm hitting over 70% at all times, then I'm living a very well life lived.
I think those are beautiful words. And I think we can put a pause on it here.
Yeah.
Because I think we're about 3.5 hours into this conversation, and we haven't scratched the surface
Nope.
of how we didn't even talk about your injuries and the broken bones. So I would request a round 2 at any time that you're up for it. I would love to sit down and talk with you even more. But I want some people to be able to retain this information and give them time to actually digest it in some way.
Let's just call this training camp, because there's a lot more to be to communicate. And this is just now beginning. People are going to start coming into this. There's going to be a funnel of people. Cattle industry right now is going to go through some pain. Our food system is on a shift here. Food hyperinflation with our food prices. People are going to, there's a new attention span coming, and it's coming our way. So we got a lot more to talk about.
And, we're not going to get anything done without some pain.
Yeah.
Really, it's the way the world works. You come into this world through pain.
Yeah.
Usually you leave the world through pain.
Well, we'll leave it at this. Okay, I was talking about injury, right?
Sure.
Talk about metalsmith.
Give it a final point.
We'll give it a final point. Well, I'm sitting here, and I'm in metalsmith, and I do all kinds of cool stuff. And a couple of years, it is a long time. It was 4 years ago, probably. But I was working in the shop, and I was with a springy metal. And I always like to tell this story. You ever been kicked by a horse?
No, sir.
Okay, I have. I've been thrown from that side of the room all the way up against a barn by one swift kick. Okay. Yeah. It's a fascinating feeling. Well, that day in that workshop, I had the same feeling, but it hit me about right here. And it snapped. It wasn't secured, and it just knocked the crap out of me.
What was it?
It's a spring metal.
Spring
basically kind of like a leaf spring metal.
Okay.
It's got some bounce back to it.
Okay.
It has memory. It's going to go, nope, we're going to end up back over here.
So you're just trying to bend it, and the bend didn't quite work, and it
popped,
boomerang back on you.
It popped hard, and it was real fast, but I was taught, deal with the pain, don't complain.
And you're in Austin at this time?
No, I was right here in Amarillo.
Okay.
And I was in Amarillo, actually. And so what happened is I broke a couple ribs, but I just covered it up. I've done that before. I've broken, 8, 9 ribs before, motorcycling, horse, falling off horse, football, whatever it was. And so I dealt with the pain. I healed up as much as I thought I was going to heal up. But I lingered, and I started going downhill, kind of with energy levels and stuff. And then I started losing weight.
Okay.
And I don't go to doctors. If I break a neck, I'll go to a doctor. I've been airlifted across the Southern Rockies. I've been, once again, we got a lot to talk about.
Yes, sir.
So I kind of ignored it, but something started going wrong, and I got very sick. And they couldn't figure it out, because I didn't think anything of me breaking ribs had anything to do with this. And they went in, and I started retaining fluid. I was down to 128 pounds. I looked bad, but I looked bloated. I looked bloated. I didn't look normal. They went in there, and they ended up pumping out of 10 days. They pumped 29 liters of fluid out of my system. I had collapsed a portal vein system
Oh,
and it was shutting down my kidneys.
oh shit.
And so there you had it. And they were going to operate. One guy said I had cancer. The medical system couldn't figure my ass out. The best thing they did for me is they drained that fluid out of me.
So what they do with the vein?
It healed itself
It
because
healed
it didn't
itself.
have, it didn't have all that basically fluid. And
So they got rid of the inflammation in the fluid that was
Infl-
causing the pressure.
they
It allowed
got
the
rid of
vein
the
to open
inflammation.
back up.
Yes.
And it now
Yeah.
I understand. See, the thing is that sometimes, God, what's the best way of wording this? A lot of people can become doctors, but not a lot of people know how to practice medicine.
no, they
Let me
don't.
put it to you that way.
That's a good way to look at it because you're right. And I went through the system and I was sitting there and everything they told me I knew was wrong. And I was like, I'm not being saved by anybody. At first, they told me I had 6 weeks to live. I told my son, hey, this is it. And he was young and it was bad. But I went and looked in that mirror and I said, okay, you're going to reflect on your life. You're going to reflect on your heritage and your culture, and you're going to engineer basically a new way to live as long as you're here.
Right.
And so that's what I did. I engineered a new consumption model, audio, video, and food. And all of a sudden, I started getting healthy. All of a sudden, I never took medication. They gave me kind of a whatever it is, a salt pill to water and sodium and all that kind of crap. They never had me on a bunch of heavy medicines. So from that day on, I've never taken anything. And I got very healthy because I engineered a lifestyle that my grandfather, my heritage taught me.
So I think that comes back to the 4 sins. One
Yep.
of them being the Buddhist ones, the fourth one being ignorance.
Ignorance.
And I think the best way of explaining is if you had remained ignorant and listened to what the physicians
They'd
had
have
said,
killed me.
you may have been dead.
Yeah, they'd have
And
killed me.
that's the thing is like, as much as we want to trust people that put on a coat or a badge or whatever, you also have to think for yourself. That inner voice that sometimes says this isn't right is usually right.
Yep, 100%.
And so,
So that type of suffering is how people find out in the beginning
yeah.
that they have to change. But that's why I came up with the phrase. I said, go ahead and engineer your own suffering a little bit before too much suffering gets engineered upon you.
Yeah, and take a Muay Thai class. Do some
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Cold plunge if you can find
a
a place to do one.
48-hour bone broth fast.
Do a sauna. And
Do a
like,
sauna.
you will very quickly understand self-engineered pain
Mm-hmm.
because it's controlled. So you can stop it at any time. Just get out of the cold plunge. Stop the Muay Thai class. But those that stick to it will understand on the other side of it is the real endorphin and dopamine rush that you were supposed to get
There you go.
because
And the
you did
serotonin
something.
that follows.
that you did something to allow your brain to reward you.
Exactly.
Because dopamine is a reward, so is serotonin.
Mhm.
You should think of it as reward systems rather than I should be getting a steady stream of it all day.
Right. Right. And by doing that, it's so simple, it's complicated to most people.
Yeah.
Take a break, man. Just walk away. Everybody's got their entry point. Don't make it something that's been devastating to you. And just make it a hobby at first. Make it an experiment. Witness it. Take the emotion out of it. Take the guilt out of it. Take the fear out of it. And witness what you're going through a fast, through a Muay Thai training that kicks your ass.
And it should.
And it should. You should suffer.
Yeah, do a jiu-jitsu class and
Yeah.
someone that is a much better practitioner than you puts you in like an armbar or a chokehold and you understand life is actually leaving your body.
Yeah.
Tell me you don't feel better 5 minutes after that. I won't believe it. Like,
I'm in
there's
my-
no way you're not going to feel better after almost getting killed in a
Exactly.
controlled manner.
Exactly. And it's a form of a great survival that has boundaries
Yeah.
that you can push. And, I'm in my 50s and my friends, most of them I grew up with, like I talked about, a lot of people suffer from a lot of diseases. I don't know a lot of people that look like me. And, and it's all it is basically through a consumption model that I control that I'm not going to allow anybody to have control over me.
I mean, just look at besides you, the other men that I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
all of them are in their 50s.
yeah,
well, except for
exactly.
Lex. Lex is closer to my age, closer
Right.
to 40. But like all of those men are in their 50s, if not higher than that.
Mm-hmm.
And they look way better than most people.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Hell, take Rogan. Joe Rogan is the prime example because so many people know that he's almost 57 years old.
Yeah.
He looks like he could stop a freight train.
Mm-hmm.
The man looks
He's healthy.
absolutely
Yeah.
the epitome of what almost a 60-year-old supposed to
Right.
look like. You're like, I can't
Exactly.
believe this could be, because I remember what 60 looked like when we were kids. You're like, you're on death's door. It's over. You're done.
Right.
You need a cane and a newspaper and one of these hats and just wait till death comes to you. But now it's a completely different world if you choose to live in it.
Yeah, it really is. And it's so fun to engineer your own like protocol of living.
Yeah.
And that's so empowering. Yeah, you know, like I said, that I do that deep breathing air. Man, I can hold my breath right now for 3 minutes.
That's great.
And people are freaked out by that. But you do breath work in the morning. This is what I do. And I love this. I wake up and I don't do anything. I sit in my little room and I get cross-legged before I think, and I start breathing violently. Because what does that do? Well, it's giving oxygen to my brain first.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not thinking about things. I'm not reaching for my phone to see what's going to trigger an emotion. I'm creating oxygen to my brain in a way to where I can have a little clarity and basically go through a parasympathetic and a sympathetic system that I control of, instead of something that's being engineered in an emotional driven way through, you know, how most people wake up.
Right.
And then I do that breath work and boom, okay, I've got some clarity. I'm looking forward to today now. I've got a little serotonin going on. I had some endorphin through the breath work. Man, my lungs feel good.
Right.
I have clarity, and now I will start my day. And if more people do that, it doesn't happen overnight, but start your day on your terms, not the fear or the anxiety that's basically being programmed and engineered into you. Try it out, and it works.
Small steps. I
Small
think, are
steps.
the best things. You can't be a cross-country runner tomorrow,
No.
but you could do a jog.
Yeah.
You can take a walk.
Walk.
And if you don't have the ability of doing that, I understand some people just genuinely don't for whatever the reason is. Find an upper body exercise that you can do.
Mhm.
Can't do that? Breathe. Breathing, I mean, it's kind of like you have to do it.
You know what I learned in Asia? The horse stance.
I don't know what
Everybody,
that is.
Google search the horse stance.
All right, I will do that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Do that for a minute and just see how you feel. Then get up to 3 minutes. Then get up to 5 minutes.
Okay.
And it's amazing. It's so simple, but it's so difficult. But you can do it for 15 seconds, and then you can do it for 30, and then you can do it for a minute. There's too many things out there at our disposal that we can look as an individual. Go to YouTube. It's the second largest search engine in the world. You can find out anything you want. You can learn anything you want. Stick to one thing that basically, just one thing. Don't try to get so linear with all these solutions. Get vertical with one first, and
Yes,
then
sir.
that will take you somewhere.
I think that's the perfect place to stop today. Folks, find your vertical. Slim, tell people where they can find you
Yes.
and the Beef Initiative and some of the other things that
The
we
best
touched
thing to
upon.
do that we can do as far as all of our ranchers and producers is go to beefinitiative.com.
So-
And what you do is you sign up. We have 5 publications, newsletters. So you're signing up for a newsletter. You're having access to hundreds of producers across the United States. We're going to start doing something called maps.beefinitiative.com. We're building out a global mapping system for everybody across this planet
Oh,
that
that'd
wants
be
to have
awesome.
market access to local produced food.
That would be great,
We're
especially
kicking
for
that
us in the
off.
big cities.
Yes. And then, I've got a podcast. You can do a good Google search is just do I Am Texas Slim, and that's our podcast. And then you can do another, this is a trick that I started years ago, is just Google search hashtag Beef Initiative. And you're going to find out all kinds of different mediums that you can dive into.
So, beefinitiative.com, I Am Texas Slim on Google, or hashtag Beef Initiative
Yep.
on Google search, and it will bring up a plethora of information. I promise we will do probably around 2 through 25 because this has been one of my favorite conversations, and it's just, we scratched the surface.
Yes, we have.
So I will definitely continue to come up here as long as you'll have me and
I
have
will-
conversations with you, sir,
And,
because
hey,
this was an
we'll
absolute
get out
pleasure.
on a horse. We'll go do some stuff next
That sounds
time.
awesome.
And we're going to have a big old cattleman's feast. I'm going to be all across the United States this year with
That sounds
different
great.
things. I'm going to be in Spokane next week.
Nice.
I'll be in Boston in May. We'll be in Virginia in June, Nashville in July, going back to Florida, and then I'm going back to Asia. But one thing I think a lot of people, if you're kind of confused about where to start with all of this,
Please, yes.
let's do this, is just do a Google search, Harvest of Deception by Texas Slim.
It's an amazing article. I read the entire article. It's got a lot of information. It's very easy to understand and digest. And it's meant for everyone to be able to read and at least get a good foundation to do your own research. That's the other thing that I always advocate for is don't listen to me blanket. I'm a moron. Listen to Slim because he has a plethora of information. Seems like a very smart human being. But you're just as bad as me if you only listen to me.
Yeah, 100%.
If you listen to me and then you start making your own thoughts.
Verify. I tell everybody, test me.
Yes.
Like I told today, everybody, right here, we'll see this. If y'all know how to check cattle prices, right? It was at 173 this morning. I said this market's going to take a hit today. And sure enough, I don't know. Maybe I'm right. Maybe I'm wrong. Test me.
We'll see.
And, what is today's date? The 5th of April?
Yeah, you're right.
All right.
April 5th it is.
All right. So
Today's
check
April 5th.
check the cattle price. Closing cattle prices on April 5th started out 173. What I'm saying is that, there's some things that you can do on yourself. Don't trust, verify,
Yes.
and test everything that I've said today. I have no problem with that. I'm not an influencer, and I'm not about trends.
And if you
We're
take
about industry here.
if you take anything away from this conversation is learn how to think.
Yeah.
It's the most important thing
Critical
I can tell
thinking
anybody.
is definitely a power move right now.
And it's a skill. It's a very hard skill. It's the same thing as trying to
Think in layers. Don't think so way across. Think density.
Yep.
Think depth of knowledge, not thinned out linear knowledge. That does nobody any good anymore.
And you'll end up being a much better person for it.
100%.
And you'll probably end up being healthier,
100%.
hopefully.
Without doubts. All right.
Slim, this has been an absolute pleasure, my
Thank you,
friend. Thank you
sir.
so much, sir, for having
Appreciate
me.
you.
I appreciate this so much.
Appreciate you driving all the